starring
Mike Murray.
This
is
SNL.
SNL By The Numbers.
Numbers.
Yes, that is right. It is the end of SNL 50, and we are at the season finale of SNL By The Numbers. I'm your host, Mike Murray. I am joined tonight, of course, is tradition, by John Schneider, Bill Kenney. We are a presentation of LateNighter.com. We are 988 episodes in, so 12 until 1,000. We will wait until next year and see when that falls in the calendar. But until then, we have some baseball cards, some report cards to look at. And who would I have with me other than my main man, John Schneider? How are you? How is season 50 for you?
Oh, Mike, put the coffee on. We're going to be here a while. This is going to be a great show.
Night.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Season 50 was a blast. It was, it had its ups and downs like any SNL season, but, I'm having the time of my life. Like, what a privilege to get to talk about the show that I've loved for so many years, and to get to do it with all of you has been really just the thrill of my life. So excited to keep this going. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight, being with two of my best buds and talking through every cast member. So, maybe if you're listening, you've tuned into certain shows this season, but not all of them. This is one you definitely need to listen to. This is like the summary of all of the things that we've been talking about all season long.
And the reason we started the show, little history, this podcast began in season 46 during COVID as SNL Stats, and the spirit of SNL Stats lives on through our socials and this podcast. And this is kind of the celebration of that, where we get to analyze an entire body of work for each cast member. So this season there'll be 17 of them. We're going to go in order from the 17th in the power rankings to the first. And Bill Kenney is going to give us some color commentary throughout the way. Bill Kenney, welcome back to the Marathon Show.
Thanks, Mike. This has become one of my favorite traditions, and I've told you before, this is one of my favorite shows of the year. Putting a bow on everything and tying it up into the stats, as you said, that it's so great to be here. The chat's always lively with this, and hearing where everybody falls and kind of thinking in your mind's eye if that's where they really that you thought they were going to be in. So I'm excited to get into it.
Mike.
Absolutely. Yes.
I don't know if you had this prepared, but what was the time of the season 47 By The Numbers show, the one that we did in the postseason, that was the maybe longest SNL podcast of all time?
I believe it was the record, right? I mean, we looked it up at the time. I have no idea what it was now, but it was definitely north of 190 to 200 minutes.
I think we were, if I remember correctly, it was 4 hours ish. And that one, and we came pretty close when we did our, preview of SNL 50. So, like I said, this is going to be a long show. You may be at home listening to this, and you may be doing multiple tasks, like put in the laundry, take it out, fold it multiple times. By the time we're done this, it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for
If you ever wanted to watch the Godfather trilogy on mute, this is the time.
Yeah, wild stuff.
Absolutely. So as another year closes, I sat down a couple hours ago and I had to reflect on what a year it's been. Last season, I kind of just surprised John and Bill by, I didn't do an opening haiku. The opening haiku was born on the season 48 wrap up of By The Numbers. So I had to take it up a notch, and I did it every week. And then I did the Ballad of 49, John, last year. And I don't know where you thought that came from, but I had to do it again.
Got to do it again.
So yeah, this was written. What's it? It's 8:16. So this was finished about 20 minutes ago. All right, Bill, are you ready?
I am ready, sir.
Okay, here we go. When the lights went out on 49 in 2024, the Sunday morning air felt calm. Much more was left in store. For SNL would return to the spot where it was born, at 30 Rock on NBC, led by a man named Lorne. From New York, the show went live October of 75. Through ups and downs and highs and lows, the sketch show did survive. Belushi, Chevy, Gilda Jane, Danny Garrett, and Lorraine. 7 players not quite ready for a golden age. Decades, eras, chapters written before its next blank page. Up on 17, Lorne sat, scheming his design, contemplating cards on corkboard, drinking his red wine. At last, the cast was back with Ashley, Emil, and Jane Wickline. Gene Smart to start its golden season. Lots of cameos to squeeze in. Maya, Andy back again. Carvey's Biden gaff again. Election coverage in cold opens. Get the ratings bump. Give Bowen's JD Vance a chance to stump with Jadge's Trump. Erotic textbooks, pyramid, pygmy hippo named Nwodim. Charlie talk show, jelly roll, a winning streak for Bowen Yang. VP debate, we're back with Nate, pronouncing words like ol. Sabado gigante and a sushi glory hole. Washington still dreams and Longfellow helps decide. Carry the body down the stairs or push it down the slide. Our next picks are Stevie Nicks and Wicked Star Grande. Charades with Mom, Celine Dion, our first midnight matinee. The smell of her best friend's house was crossword killer Mikey Day. Dismukes and Chloe newlyweds, but there's just one thing though. On her bachelorette trip, she took a dip in the hot tub with Domingo. Michael Keaton is eating some tableside guacs. The return of TikToks. Billy sings on a box. Andrew fights for his love. His attempt is in vain when he's met with contempt singing Ego Some Train. Kamala and Maya meet face to face. NASA gets Beppo home safe from space. A Mulaney show would not be complete without a new musical and a visit from Pete. Bill Burr bears the burden of the post-election monologue. Ashley tries to tell her joke about 4 gorgeous dogs. Wild Wings, Willie, and Sex Rock CD, Ballad of the Bald Men, and music from McGee. Charlie adds brat to the SNL lingo, calls the cops with Andy, another visit from Domingo. Next week, David Spade paid a visit to Church Chat. Mescal has an earring underneath his hat. Gladiator musical, Brilliant Lawyer was a doozy. PDD makes Paul their daddy. Good news from Shabuzi. Chris Rock on the clock for his next shift. Dreams up a Simpsons episode around his Christmas gift. 2 mall Santas have to compete. Surprise, it's Sandler underneath the sheet. Martin Short to report and finally get his jacket. Melissa bursts through the wall and causes quite the racket. Rudd, Hanks, Alec Faye, the most iconic hosts. Emma Stone, Kristen Wiig, and Mrs. Colin Jost. Heidi helps a homeless Kenan spending Christmas Eve alone. Che wins the joke swap, and Bowen is a drone. The new year is here, and so is Chappelle. 17 minutes of smoky stories to tell. Evacuating Devon and Ego, his wife, Dave reveals his second life and takes Longfellow's knife. Hamilton sequel, it's only a tease. Founding fathers, forced to freeze. What Bob Dylan tunes will Chalamet play? What should you get, Mom, for Valentine's Day? What if doctor's visits were just like a pod? What if Timmy was a dog and the voice of God? February 16th on a Sunday night, past and present stars shined bright. The peacock spread its mighty wings to celebrate and venerate the joy that this show brings. Studio 8H through time became a hallowed ground. Simon and Sabrina sing the song of Homeward Bound. Endless guests and former casts and SNL parade. Steve Martin gave the monologue and Miley sang Sinead. Sandberg's anxiety, stomach and knots. Debbie Downer, Bronx Beat. Jack Handy's deep thoughts. Bill Murray, the ranker of each anchor. The best to host update. Eddie Murphy and Will Ferrell team up to scare us straight. Sandler cheers to 50 years and leaves us all in tears. Those we've lost, Phil and Farley, both among his peers. Don't look back in anger with a word from Garrett Morris. McCartney closes with the end, a fitting final chorus. On to March with Musk Myers and Gillis of Tires, continuing on track. Couple of beers cures Shane's pain. His ex-wife won't come back. Gaga still a killer, a double-duty ace. Uses all the 8H space on a suitcase chase. Pip lifts weights and saves classmates. At Friendly's, birthday lies mean sacrifice surprise. Clear a path in the big dumb line for Oscar winner Mikey. I'm the problem, Morgan Wallen. Get me to God's country. I'm back, sang Jack Black, attending the first play. Flamin' hot Cheetos and a goth kid on vacay. One-upping old friends with Jack Black faces. The open mic at the lake had a few too many bases. Ham is our man, Beck and Moffat and White POTUS. John and Bowen stole a baby, hoped you wouldn't notice. Quint is at the wheel again, Benson Boone does his backflips. In a ferry fight with Mikey, signing, reading lips. Walton Goggins is the owner of the tiny baby shoe. Hitting on brunch moms, writing Amendment 2. Seventh time for Scarlett, coming through that door. Takes her aim at Michael Che, evening the score. She takes John, Ben, and Martin on a first-class flight. Marcello and Bad Bunny get into a fake bar fight. Bowen's still straight, though we all had a hunch. Final sketch of the bunch, Victorian ladies eating lunch. Jost and Che, will they stay? Chloe, Kenan, Mikey, Day? Emil and Ashley, Devon, Jane, will they all find their lane? Longfellow and Marcello? Dismukes and Sarah, Heidi, Miss Eggy? James Austin Johnson holding steady? Season 50, it's all done. Half-century historic run. Others like it, there are none. The fun has only just begun. Till next time, everyone, we'll see you in season 51.
Man, that was unbelievable. I wish we recorded that.
Oh, damn. We can run it back.
That was amazing. Congratulations, wow. Mike. We thought you couldn't top yourself. You did it once again. You are a multi-talented performer. Thank you for giving us that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Mike, if you gave me 3 months, I couldn't do anything close to that. So that's quite the feat, man. Amazing.
Yeah. That was unbelievable. Seriously, can't believe you did that. And I cannot wait to see that. We're going to put that up on socials like we did last year, add some visuals to it, and just put it out for the world because you continue to crush.
Appreciate it. Numbers and poetry, just, two things that bring the show together that got to keep it going.
Yeah.
But yeah,
do you need some water? Do you need a break?
No, I mean, I didn't prepare anything else for the show, so I hope that's okay.
That's okay. That's fine. Should we end it here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the whole season was preparation. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yes. Okay. So before we start the show here tonight, we have some business to attend to. So all the way back, September 4th, 2024, we held a draft here on the SNN to determine and guess which alumni will return to the show during season 50. We awarded 1 point for anyone who would appear in the SNL 50 anniversary special. 2 points if they appeared in any regular episode of SNL throughout the 50th season, and 3 points if they hosted the show. So the results are in, and congrats to Sammy K, who crushed this one with the team of Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Jason Sudeikis, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Robert Downey Jr., who did not really appear, but 29 points over to Sammy. TJ came in second with the team of Andy Samberg, Kristen Wiig, Tina Fey, Bobby Moynihan, also had Dan Aykroyd not appearing. And Rachel comes in third place with Maya Rudolph, 11 points from Maya, 3 from Kyle Mooney, 1 from Seth Meyers, Will Forte, and Anna Gasteyer. I came in fourth. Bill in fifth place. Bill, you had Chris Rock, who hosted the show, Cecily, who appeared late in the season. You also had appearances from Eddie Murphy, Bill Murray, and John Lovitz as well. Amanda in sixth place, Haynes in seventh, and Kirsten in last place with only 3 points. No Bill Hader, no Daryl Hammond in the special, did not help her. So there you go. Congrats to Sammy K for that one. We had one more draft. This draft was our regular cast draft headed into season 50. And Bill, do you remember the stakes we put on that draft?
I have to say I don't.
Okay. Between the 8 of us that were on that night, we made an agreement that the person who comes in last place would not be allowed to draft in the future. And all season long, I was very close to coming in last place. but I did not. So here is the final results for season 50 draft, cast draft. Here we go. Bill, congrats, buddy. You came in first place. You won the cast draft. Andrew and Sarah, a combination of 154 sketches between the two of them. We had a tie for second place between Amanda and Sammy. Amanda, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, but comes in second here with Chloe and Marcello. And then Sammy had James and Emil. Fourth place, Thomas Senna, who won the draft in season 49. Comes in fourth place here in season 50 with Ego and Ashley. Haskell, fifth place with Heidi and the combo of Jost and Che. TJ with Bowen and Devon. I came in seventh place, just squeaked out with Mikey and Jane over Zoe, who picked Kenan and busted pretty hard with Kenan this season, who, was definitely, probably top 5 potential, and Michael Longfellow. So 113 points. Zoe, we will not have you on the season 51 draft, but you are eligible for the season 52 draft. So apologies over there. Bill, what does it mean to be the champion of the season 50 cast draft?
Oh, I'm excited and surprised. I wasn't really sure. You used to send us updates, and I haven't really been able to see where I was at. So I knew I was doing pretty good with Dismukes kind of leading the cast with all the appearances, and I knew obviously Sarah had a great season too. But there are some formidable teams here too. I think if Zhaj had, we'll get into it later, but if Zhaj had more of those father-husband roles, I might have been coming in second place there. So I'm excited. What a finally contested battle.
Yeah, so you will pick the draft order for season 51's draft eventually when we get there. I will also say, great job. You picked in the 8-9 slot, which is not the easiest to figure out what to do there, and you picked right. And when I made my pick of Mikey Day, I did text our own Mikey, Mike Murray, to ask who I should pick in that slot. So, Mike, it's a little bit of a combo. We didn't put our brains together in the way that we want. So hopefully next year you'll help me get further up the standings.
Yeah, no problem. I thought the punishment was going to be you couldn't podcast the next season, which I thought was way more funny when you said that you almost lost.
No, that's the punishment if you say skit, which is
okay. All right. That was
Haynes did.
Yeah.
And we will see him in season 52. Okay.
Love you, Haynes. We'll see you. Yeah. See you in a couple of years.
Yeah, we're gonna check the tapes on that one. I'm pretty sure he said skit, and we'll review that in the off season. All right, Mike, why don't you set up what's going to be happening here on the show tonight?
All right, so we have prepared the annual By the Numbers baseball cards, report cards, whatever you want to call them, and it's going to just give you a look at what their season ended up being, because there's a lot of way to quantify SNL stats. So I use the one number, the power ranking, to kind of give you the easiest view into what their season was, because it takes into consideration everything. But these cards will give you all the deep data too. How much screen time, how many appearances, where did they appear, and how much screen time was that? Was it an update, cold opens, live sketch, pre-tapes, all that kind of stuff, and some fun other ones too, like how many times they say live from New York, and who do they appear the most with? So we're going to kick it off from 17 and go all the way to number 1. So if you tuned into By the Numbers last week, you know exactly what order we're going to go in. So leading off in the 17 spot is recent promotion, third-year player Devon Walker, who finished in 17th place. So, John, this is, we always say, I said it before the show, we spend the most time on the first card because it's tough to come in last. And the ramifications of that we know, because a lot of the seasons of the power rankings, the last place finisher did not return. So I'm going to give you the hard ball right off the bat and say, will Devon Walker return in season 51? Let's kick it off.
Yeah. Okay. So I always have to say this. I say this every single season. This discussion that we have here tonight is no indication on how we feel about these cast members personally. I know, like, some people watch the show and they're like, "Oh, I really like this person," or "I really dislike this person." I don't feel that way. I have been fortunate enough to meet a lot of these people in person. They've been super nice, and like, I honestly, like, every one of them is invited on the show in the future, so it's not like we want to criticize them on a personal level at all. This is strictly just looking at the data of Saturday Night Live. And if we're being real here, Devon's data this season was not good. It just did not come anywhere close to the expectations that I had for him coming into this season. I believe he had a decent season 49 with a good political impression that I'm gonna say off as I think of it was
Eric Adams.
Tim Scott.
Tim Scott. Yeah,
That
the
was
one.
last
Right.
year.
That was
Right.
last year. Yeah. So coming out of season 49, playing Tim Scott, I felt pretty good about Devon's potential this year. I feel first year as a repertory player, has the ability to step up, has a pretty good episode 1 with Gene Smart. You can see the screen time by episode there. And just like craters after that. And it just was so like few and far between where we just get like sudden boosts of interesting nights from him. But on average, just like doesn't have a regular spot in the SNL rotation. And I guess my thing is like, it is harder for stand-ups to find their way into the SNL world. And like, maybe if it wasn't for, you know, the stuff that was happening with COVID, like, and in an alternate universe, like everything goes through COVID and writer strike, whatever, like maybe Devon's not even on the show, but given that he is, like, I think that through 3 years, like it has to be to the point where we're like, okay, is this show the right fit for your comedic voice? And I just don't know like how he would want to keep going on the show, knowing what he has been able to get on the show. So like for me, I definitely have to put like danger warning, ring the bell, Mike. Like it is somebody that I think we have to like all keep an eye on of like, is this working? And as far as I can tell, it's not right now.
I have 2 points to make just to use precedent. I saw Oversimplified in the chat mention Chris Redd in his 3rd year. So look up that stat as a comparison. He was a 51.9 in his 3rd season, and Devon Walker's a 35.5. Also important to note is how the cast shook out last season. So 35.5 finishes Devon in last place. That would have finished him above the bottom 4 last year. So it seemed like, I mentioned this a lot on last week's podcast, that the ceiling and the floor got closer together. You know, we didn't have the people in the hundreds. We didn't have anyone in the low 30s and the 20s this season. So using the power ranking metric. So even though someone has to finish first, someone has to finish last, Devon finishing last, definitely not a good thing, but context matters, right? He had a better season this year than Longfellow, Punky, Trost, and Molly did last year. So want to mention that before I go over to Bill.
Yeah, Devon's given us quite the roller coaster. I know when we talked about him last year, 48 was really in the danger zone in his first year. And we saw some real signs of promise. A lot of it was based on the Tim Scott impression, but he covered a lot more ground. And yeah, there's just not a lot here. Obviously, he takes over the Eric Adams from the aforementioned Chris Redd once he's back in the news, but he only does that a couple of times. Most of the significant stuff that I can remember from him from this season happened at the beginning of the season. The water slide with Bergazzi and calling dad with Bill Burr. Like those are the things. And even those, he's just one piece. He's not leading anything. He has a couple of update pieces that are good. But yeah, I would definitely say he's probably not coming back, but who knows what they'll do.
Like the update piece that he did during the Mikey Madison episode, where he filmed that whole thing and like worked off of Che and like him working out and preparing for the week and all that stuff, like that was so good to me. Yeah. But it was him playing himself, and or at least like a toned up version of himself. And that made me feel like, okay, he's not doing stand-up in that moment, but it just shows how comfortable he is playing himself. And the people that do that the best tend to only truly find a place on update, probably. And I just, like, again, like I haven't seen in a very long time live sketch material from Devon that I feel like does match up to some of the standard that the rest of the cast is producing right now.
And I want to read out for the audio listeners what his stats ended up being too. His screen time finished with 40 minutes, 38 seconds. And, this is being his 3rd season. You like to see that be better. I mentioned the previous year stats that he would have finished 5th to the last, not dead last, and he would have finished below himself though last year. He was a 43.6 in the power ranking last year, so that is a pretty big dip for someone who got the big promotion. And he had 43 appearances, said live from New York once, an average appearance of 2.15 per episode. You see him most with Kenan, 27 shared segments. I think he's one of the only, or if a few that had Kenan as his top co-star. Let's do the screen time breakdown. 60.2% in live sketch, followed by 15.2% in weekend update, which is two big appearances, Eric Adams in the premiere, and then what John mentioned, the routine he did in the Mikey Madison episode. 15.2% screen time there, 10.9 in pre-tape, and then a little bit 2.1% in the monologue. Oh, and the 11.6 in the cold open. So I want to look at where he really did well, which, I've looked at his episodes over his career. I think it was early in his rookie year that he had his best episode, which was the Megan Thee Stallion episode. So it was sort by his best episode. It still is, but his second best episode was with Dave Chappelle. So that was the 11th episode of this year, where he had 5 minutes and 4 seconds of screen time. He peaked there. He had the lead with Ego and Dave Chappelle, two great live performers in sketch with that fire evacuation. And we have to say it, right, that when we have diversity in hosts, the diverse cast can succeed better sometimes, right? Like, it's just, we have to say it. So when we have a black male host and you have a black male cast member, like, maybe the opportunities open up. Where you have a family sketch and you cast, the actors and actresses who can fit that family, right? So things like that are a factor. And it's good to see that he had a second best episode. But you have to go down to, the update pieces. Gene Smart, the premiere, and Mikey Madison are really the only episodes other than that, because he had a standout solo piece, that even come close to his top 10. You have to go all the way back down to John Hamm, which was, his 13th best episode of his career. So didn't really have episodes this season that stood out other than Chappelle, if you don't count update, which I think is important to note.
Yeah, but also, he had that Bill Burr calling dad sketch where he calls Kenan. And I think that's probably a good example of okay, you're going to put a black family together. So you're going to have Devon call Kenan in that case. So you would get more of those if we had more black hosts or more diverse hosts. So that definitely tracks. However, there is something to be said about someone getting on their own material regardless of who the host is. And it's one of those things that yes, a natural thing would happen where, he could be in sketches with a particular type of host that'll suit him better. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that is something that will happen on a regular basis. And when we're trying to determine what success is on the show, I think somebody getting on the show on average more is what we're looking for here, as opposed to the popping off every few episodes. I think something I would love to do, because I have the data, and this will be a fun addition to everyone's segment, is just sort of look at this SPE stat that I love, Mike, where you look at the sketch per episode average. So we're looking at a 2.15 sketch per episode average, which essentially means that every episode he'll be in at least 2 segments, and then every, call it 5 episodes, he'll be in a third segment. His career SPE as of 58 episodes now is 2.59. So he did worse than his average in season 50. And I'd like to compare that to maybe somebody else in SNL history to sort of look at the data. So, if I'm looking for someone around the 60 episode mark that has a similar SPE, I'd look at Sashir Zameda, who was in 74 episodes and a 2.73. I also take a look, and I see on the list Ellen Cleghorn, 2.48 in 80 episodes. And then I go down a little bit further, Melanie Hutzel, 2.35 in 55 episodes. So when we're just looking for a range of comparable careers, if there were careers were to end today, that's sort of what the stat line looks like.
Love the historical comps, because we have a tendency, right, to do comparisons for better or worse. And when you look back at the history, you can kind of say, well, did they make an impact on the show when it was all said and done? Devon, Longfellow, and Marcello being the new promotions, you would think that they're going upwards. And as John mentioned, his SPE sketches per episode went down. His screen time, his first 2 featured years, 2:29, as in 2 minutes, 29 seconds, 2:29 again in season 49. This season, 2 minutes 2. So screen time naturally went down as well. Bill, final thoughts on Devon, and we always do this with the bottom of the power rankings, is, you got to be the coach, say that if Lauren or the producers say, we really like what you're doing, we need you to do more of this or more of that, like what should Devon do in 51 that he's not last place?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to, and you can say this for a lot of the people that we'll see towards the bottom of the list here, writing for themselves. Why is somebody like Dismukes near the top? Why is Mikey Day consistently putting out material? They're writing for themselves. Devon, I think a lot of people who come in from the stand-up background struggle with writing sketches. Obviously, it's a completely different animal. I would coach him to do something along that line, spend the summer trying to figure something like that out. Not a bad year. As you said, he would have been above a lot of the people who were towards the bottom last year. So maybe the parody helps save his job. But I don't know. I hope so, because I like him, and I think he's got a lot of potential.
And John, my question to you, 9 appearances this season of 2 minutes or more. That's, there's 20 episodes. He couldn't get half the episodes to have a 2-minute appearance in. So I have to ask you what I open with. Will he be back? And if he is, then same question to you is, will they use him differently? Or is this kind of like a Melissa or a Punky situation where you're going to be teetering around that 2.5 minutes if you're lucky, and it's never going to be a 3 or 4 like we've seen with Sarah and Dismukes?
I don't think he'll be back. I don't know why he would want to come back. I'm sure he loves the camaraderie and being there. I'm sure it's a ton of fun to be at Saturday Night Live. I'm just saying, do you want to be the 17th best cast member at SNL? That's a question that I do ask. Do you, at this point with the resume of being at the show, I do think that there's other things that he can continue to do for his career. And if he does come back, then I think that something has to change. He either has to find a writer that could really write in his voice, or maybe team up with other cast members. He tried the thing with him and James. I thought that was really successful, but I just haven't, that clearly isn't working enough. And I just want to address a comment, which I think is a really good comment for this point in the show. So that way we could sort of get this out in the open and while we go through all of these cast members. So there's a comment in the chat from our friend, Illinois high school hoop stars, I believe. It says, shouldn't you also rate the quality of the sketches? So I just want to address that here, because we have a lot of different shows. When we do numbers like this, we are operating under the sole assumption that the show puts the best material on the show. When we do the hot take show or the roundtables, we could say, okay, maybe we don't think they actually did that. But here in the data show, we're going from the SNL premise that we start with 80 ideas, narrow it down to 40 sketches at the table, go to 20 and then to 12 at dress, and then cut it down to 8 to 10. And the hope is that the way that they got to the live show was that was the best stuff that they had that week. And because we operate under that premise, we now can evaluate whether someone is having success on the show or is failing at the show based on them actually appearing on screen. So because of that, we don't evaluate sketch by sketch and say, oh, Devon had one good sketch, one episode, and it was great quality. We're talking here about the show putting him in a position to succeed, or Devon finding a way to succeed within the machine of the show. Did I say that right, Mike? Perfectly said.
It's a question that I was one of the reasons why I started doing the stats, was because everyone gets, an affinity for a cast member. And when they see them, they get happy. We like that, right? We like to root for people. We have our own biases, and we have, going into a show and saying, oh, I haven't seen this person yet. I want to see, like I mentioned, a Punky or a Melissa. And then when they come on screen, they might kill with one line. But when you look at an entire season of work, you have to take as I always call it, the empirical data, what can't be subjective. So that's what we're doing here. And looking at 20 episodes and saying, hey, did it work or did it not work? So someone has to be last.
Yeah.
Want to move on?
Let's do it.
So Devon being last place means, of course, that he did finish behind 3 new hires, which is probably, after all the numbers we just gave you, the most important headline we could possibly say is this season, SNL hired Emil Wakim, Ashley Padilla, and Jane Wickline. And we didn't know who was going to finish first in that trio, but we would think naturally that they would be the bottom 3 coming into an established cast, making it 17 people total. So now we get to our first rookie. It's Jane Wickline in 16th place. Power ranking was 39.0. Screen time, 48 minutes and 9 seconds. So about 8 minutes more than Devon had on the previous slide. 48 segments. Most saw her with Heidi Gardner. You're going to see Heidi on these co-stars a lot, especially with the female cast. 26 of those. And we can't talk about Jane Wickline without talking about Weekend Update. 34.3% of her screen time. I think I'm reading that right. I think it should be higher. Is going to be on Weekend Update because that's where we saw her the most. So I will look into that, John. But give me your thoughts on Jane just as a rookie. You know, we can save the predictions for the end, but did she have a good rookie season?
So this is one of those where I do feel like the numbers probably say that she had a better rookie season than the eye test told me. Like, I think that I was pretty tough on her when it came to my evaluation on the other shows because I felt like all of the things that she was getting on of significance, she brought with her to the show. And that's great for like the first couple episodes of the season. I just talked to Fred Armisen and talked to him about doing Ferricito on the first episode and then this, Safety Day sketch on his second episode. And then eventually sort of like finding his way into the SNL rhythm where he then produced material. It took Jane 19 episodes to finally get something like on the show in her voice that was not something she brought with her into the show. So that to me, like from the naked eye, was like, all right, I don't know if this is working. But the fact that she did get that on at the end of the season was maybe a chance for her to be brought back to the show. So it's a really interesting case study for me where I felt Bill coming into the season that she was the rookie I was most excited about because of her unique voice. But I don't know, even though the numbers say that she's having a decent season, that I was blown away by Jane, and I'm confident that she will be around the show for many years.
Yeah, I almost took a tact once she was being maligned so badly online about her performances and like that to defend her more than maybe she deserved. She, outside of those Weekend Update appearances, the sketches that she's in, she doesn't do very well. So that's a little concerning. Again, if she finds her voice, Tiny Baby Shoe might have saved her job, as you kind of are pointing to, John. There's so little to point to outside of those Weekend Update appearances where she sings. Very good. I love all the times she did that, and the ones that she did with Marcello. Even though she has a lot less to do as Marcello's yelling and screaming and kind of eating the scenery. But yeah, she's one of the most perplexing rookies in my memory because you can't really put her in a box. And I want to see more live sketches to see what she can really do. Even the Tiny Baby Shoe was a pre-tape. So what can she bring if she leads a live sketch on air in any role, the sister, wife, girlfriend, and kind of go from there. But yeah, I'm really not sure what to think of her. It's hard to put a finger on.
And Bill, you said we can't really put Jane in a box, but I think that at least she has herself, or the writers have, because 5 update appearances and the Baby Shoe pre-tape, she was also singing a song there, whether she had written it weeks ago or that week, knowing that Goggins was going to do it and whatever remains to be seen. But yeah, 34.3% time and update, I did look at it. That's correct. And I think the baby shoe pre-tape really skewed that percentage because at one point the season, it was half of her time. So you got to imagine that Weekend Update, although it's part of a grander show and we can look at it isolated through stats or through YouTube and stuff and the metrics that go into that, it's kind of, this is the most ensemble it's been since we've been doing this podcast. And Jane's not somebody who fits into an ensemble. So that's my leadoff point on Jane. So John?
I think it's the most ensemble the show's ever been.
Yeah.
Like even be
for
honest.
sure.
So like I think it's really tough for her. But also, you know, again, I just mentioned Fred Armisen. I do think like Fred actually, like I see a little bit of Fred and Jane in that they're both very timid personalities. And I don't think they're like naturally, I don't want to say warm, but like they're not like naturally extroverted. I think they're introverted people. And I think if you are an introverted person and you want to succeed on SNL, you have to lean hard into the weird or into the characters. And I just think that like if the best thing I saw from her was her leaning into her timidness via playing opposite Marcello, who was leaning into his like insanely extroverted personality, then that's like not enough for me.
Agreed. And you see her top co-star Heidi Gardner, and I can't think of a more opposite person. Heidi Gardner, when she came in season 43, and you look at her in just average screen time, like how great of a rookie year that was. It was 318 versus 224, appearances off the chart, but was able to do utility on day one. So I think Jane got the opportunity on the water slide sketch with Longfellow, Nate, and Devon. And whether that was a good performance, a bad performance is subjective, but we didn't really see a lot of that. We saw little drops here and there, a la Michael Longfellow's first season. So I think that I'd like to see Jane, if she's back in season 51, just be able to do like a two-hander outside of Update, because that's the only time we ever saw it was with Marcello. And the whole premise was based on she's quiet, he's loud, like comedy ensues. So the way we let off is just have a character or have a writing partner, a teammate, and see where it goes. But I think it's just not enough. But the rookies did okay. So compared to other rookies we've covered, the stats aren't terrible. But without that update, we got to subtract 16 whole minutes. So we're down to a half hour the whole season almost.
Yeah, and the potential is there. I think my favorite live sketch with her was the first play with Jack Black, which was an ensemble piece. There's a lot going on, but she's playing the usher who's telling these people who don't understand what's going on to sit down. And there was something about that performance that really spoke to me. I think she did a really good job with that. So I would love to see her in something like that, in more pieces of that nature.
Yeah, and I think she had some good lines in the water park sketch. A lot of people were praising her, even in the A Long Goodbye rideable luggage sketch. I think people were enjoying some of the stuff they got from her there. Like she definitely has a unique voice, and I think that if we cut off every unique voice we ever had for having a bad rookie season, the history of SNL would look a little bit different. But it's just more that coming into episode 19, like I was like, oh, she is for sure a goner. I think there's a glimmer of hope right now. I do want to say, if her career ended today, I think that there's some interesting, historical comparisons. So she has a 2.4 sketch per episode average. So you expect her in one every two episodes to either be in two or then three things. She is right behind Brooks Wheelan. So 21 episodes, 2.43. Also that, he was a stand-up, got some stuff on Update, but still like had trouble finding his voice on the show. Other, 20 episode people with a similar sketch per episode average. Laura Keitlinger, season 20, 2.35. Also didn't really know where her voice was on the show. Chloe Trost, 2.35. 20 episodes. Very interesting historical comparison where Jane, I believe in 48 segments, Trost in 47 last year. So very similar rookie seasons we got from those two, Mike.
And I'm looking at Tro stats right now, average 2 minutes 13 per episode, and didn't get update once. So just a tale of two cast members right there. Trost being somebody that was used more ensemble and used more live and had similar numbers at the end of the day to Jane, who had those 5 update pieces. And when we're talking about update versus live sketch, when you look at the sketches, it's very bleak, like a minute or more. It's the Lady Gaga suitcase sketch when she's one of the bikers, a minute 6. That awful, maybe worst sketch of the year, Intimacy Coordinators from ScarJo, a minute 6. It's the sequel to the Marcello acting teacher, a minute 20. Water Park 220, because she was on screen a lot and had a lot of lines. And then the background of the Ego and Chris Rock blind date, 234. So other than that, all her appearances that are really north of a minute or 2 minutes is update. So my final question to wrap up Jane Wickline is a question I've pondered many times doing stats is, can you sustain an SNL career when update is really your only recourse to break through? I'll go to Bill, you first, because we saw it with a little bit with Pete sometimes and a lot with Leslie sometimes, but they still got more, I think, beyond that. They're just known for that. So is this sustainable in a season 2 and 3?
I don't think so. Outside of Pete, Leslie was in a lot of sketches besides being known for update. I mean, Pete, I don't know how many sketches we really saw him in outside of update, especially the early years.
Well, I can just tell you, if you don't mind me jumping in, Bill, that season 40, Pete was in 60 sketches and averaged 3, so 60 and 20 episodes. So that is a jump from Jane Wickline, even though he's mostly known for updates. And I'll even then jump to 41, just so we just look at the data for that. So it took us a little bit of a step back in 41, 56 sketches and 21 episodes, so 2.67 there, but still higher than Jane.
Yeah, it's not sustainable because it's just the basis of the show is so many different. You got to do update, you're going to do pre-tapes, you're going to do, and you may be better at one of those things. Heidi early on was in a lot of update, but she was also doing a lot of sketches. So there's a lot of people who you can point to as update people, but they also have the well-roundedness of being able to do other stuff.
So John, another Danger Watch candidate. Will Jane Wickline return in 51?
I would say that my predictions for 51 include Jane not being asked back. I think that Jane and Devon would be the two that are the most likely to not be asked back. And that was before I even realized that they were at the bottom of the power rankings. But certainly that is, beyond just what I saw with the eye test. The numbers tell the story as well.
And this is a kind of a consequential rehire or firing, in my opinion, Bill, because I think this is SNL reaching into their bag of tricks or trying to add new ones in this case, where they say, can we pull someone from TikTok, put them on our show, and it's going to be successful? And so Jane could be the guinea pig for that. And her success or failure beyond a rookie year could determine how they reach a younger audience. Should they do this again with somebody else, or should they kind of like let it run its course? So final thoughts, Bill.
Yeah, but Marcello kind of came from that background too. It wasn't the only thing he was known for. PDD on YouTube, JAJ doing a lot of stuff on TikTok and Instagram. So I don't know. Yeah, I get where you're going there. It may take a couple more years for them to decide to jump back into that fire, and maybe more trepidatious about how they want to go about something like that, because I don't think it's an even sum. I don't think the fact that she came from TikTok is the reason that she's not doing very well on the show. So you may want to just kind of, tweak the metrics and see, can you find somebody on TikTok who has a better presence, maybe more of an extrovert?
Right. The variety, of course, is there. And they went with Jane, someone who does a lot of solo pieces. So if you've seen her before SNL, you might have recognized some of them. So how deep is her well? That could be the case of season 2 in her career, if that should happen. So, John, let's move on to number 15, which is going to be another classmate of Jane's, Emil Wakim, with a 41.4 finish. So that's 2.4 points ahead of Jane. Emil is an interesting candidate because I think a lot of his future could determine who does not return. So we saw him get some Mikey Day type roles. And if Mikey Day moves on, Emil, I think, does a good job being a guy in a sketch, which I think is one of the highest compliments you can give to somebody on SNL is, can you be a guy in a sketch? So here are his stats: 41.4 power ranking, 52 minutes, 35 seconds of screen time, over 52 appearances. That's a 2.6 average. He starred alongside James Austin Johnson 32 times. So only 20 times did we see Emil somewhere in the show that James was not also there. His breakdown, live sketches, number one. So we like to see that over 50%, I think, because that means you can play well with others. 51.8% live sketch, 27.5% cold open. So, of course, there's some, frozen behind Trump moments, but we did see him alongside only James in the finale, which is a great chance to act alongside James as Trump, hold your own, get a lot of FaceTime. And, it was a big cold open moment to be the finale. 1.8% monologue, 6.1% pre-tape, and 12.8% weekend update over 2 appearances. Bill, I'm going to start with you. His 2 weekend update appearances, I feel like were pretty memorable, but also played himself, as we mentioned with Jane. And just where you see him fitting into a future SNL cast and your overall thoughts.
It's always troubling when the second half of a season for a rookie doesn't go as well as the first. At the beginning, it really felt like he was getting in, and the numbers bear this out. Looking at this now, he was in a lot of live sketches. He was playing the boyfriend, the husband. The earring sketch with Mescal and Heidi is one that sticks out for me. The update appearances were great. Another stand-up. I was there for his first, and it was really exciting to see him get his moment in the sun in only the 4th episode of the season. But yeah, it is a little concerning to see where these numbers kind of go after the new year starts. But again, like you said, like if Mikey leaves, if Longfellow is no longer in the cast, is that something that he kind of fills the vacuum for? So I'm high on him, and I think that he'll be back.
John, I'd love your thoughts, because we saw Emil come in. It could have been a Luke Null or an Aristotle situation where this is somebody who comes from a stand-up background who might not do live sketch, but we saw him do plenty of it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think for a stand-up who came into the show this season, he's probably had more success than the 48 stand-ups, besides Marcello, I'd say. So I feel pretty good about Emil. I think his first half of the season, it was really a tale of two halves, where the first half is somebody who's like clearly picking up and just running with their ability to be in live sketches. That 51.8% live sketches is a great number for him. That like big green portion in the pie chart. Feel really good about that. The second half of the season, he sort of hits a little bit of a rookie wall. He has a few good episodes, obviously gets a lot of screen time in that cold open and the Chalamet episode. But if you take away those sort of like behind, the tableau cold opens, the numbers don't bear out the way that I would have liked for his second half. Sometimes it's not a perfect comparison, but sometimes I do compare it to in baseball when a rookie comes up and they just start hitting, and then it takes a while to get some like footage on them. So you get like the pitchers eventually will adjust and figure out like what they do well and will attack their weaknesses. I feel like that sort of happens to SNL rookies sometimes, where they hit what I could call like a rookie wall. Sometimes it happens at the beginning of their second season, but a lot of rookies go through a slump at some point, just as the show says to them, not literally, but figuratively says to them, you're a rookie, you'll have your time. We're going to focus on other people. And I think that's what happened here in the second half of the season, where Emil was like really proving himself in the first half. And then he had a huge block of shows where he just wasn't getting anything on, which certainly was concerning. But because there are so many highlights throughout the season and he's shown himself to have the potential to be a great utility player for a long time, I feel pretty good about him moving forward. This is what I would want from a prototypical rookie at this point of the SNL, like in this era, I would say.
I agree with that. I think he's also shown range in those sketches. Bill mentioned the Paul Mescal earring sketch where he's playing a dad role, especially for a young guy playing off a vet like Heidi and holding his own. And we are mentioning this kind of first half, second half, and the stats can always be deceiving, right? We manipulate them and try to sift through the data where you can see, okay, well, his screen time actually maybe improved in second half. So I wanted to just take a closer look if you would remove the Trump tableaus. So first half of season 50, 24 minutes, 41 seconds. Second half, which included those Trump tableaus, I excluded them for this number, 16:44. So you do have this drop of, 8 minutes almost exactly from half 2 versus half 1 if you don't include someone frozen in the background. So screen time can be deceiving, appearances can be deceiving. So power ranking makes him 15th overall.
Yeah, and I think he also has a voice that the show really needs. Like you see it in his update pieces where he's like not afraid to be bold. His update piece from the John Hamm episode was incredibly praised and so well deserved for him to have that moment. I pointed out, I think it was on a roundtable on Monday, I pointed out that if you go back to watch the Goodnights from the Scarlett Johansson finale and Colin brings up flowers to Scarlett, go back, watch that and look at Emil in the background and just see the face that he's making and how funny it is and how much he's like really well loved and part of that group. I feel he's integrated himself really well. To me, like, though he is 15th in the rankings, I think I would say that he's pretty safe right now for me, Bill.
Yeah, and the confidence is clear that the show has in him because even though that second half wasn't what we'd like to see, in that Gillis episode when it's just a two-hander with him and Shane, he really carries his weight, and they're not just going to throw somebody in there that they don't trust, no matter how good they think the sketch is, and that bodes well to me that we'll see him again.
Agreed. 15 appearances over a minute, and we have some good variants. Of course, those cold opens, which you mentioned, 2 updates we mentioned, but 2 top sketches, the earring and doctor's visit with Gillis. There's also that leadership summit sketch we saw with Quinta, right? The sex rock CD with Bill Burr. He played the son. They were the only 2 people on that set. Of course, we have the band, Sarah, James, and Andrew on the other set. And then the gallbladder surgery. He got called out by name from the Sandman. Hope you're getting airtime. So we love mentions of SNL stats. We saw a lot of them this season, John, right? I mean, a lot of mentions of stats on the season. So
yeah, I don't want to hear anybody tell me that data is not a part of Saturday Night Live. It's definitely a part of the show. Speaking of data, let me look at just some historical comparisons for other rookies who only did last one season. And again, I think Emil is safe, but I'll just say if the career ends tomorrow or today, what we may look at as a comparison. So here's an interesting one. So Emil, 20 episodes, 2.6 SPE, 21 episodes, 2.62 SPE for John Rudnitsky. So a very close comp. We just spoke to John on the show. He had some really big moments that popped for some people, but then some other nights that didn't work as well. Rob Riggle, another comparison, 2.65 and 20 episodes. Someone else who, had his moments where he popped on the show. So, I feel better about Emil's chances here than those guys who were only rookies, but just thought it was interesting to bring them up in comparison to Emil.
Interesting because of the, what happened to those cast members, but I'm going to predict, I think Emil will be back. And I think that he's somebody that you can always use more of in a cast like this right now. So John, will Emil be back?
I'd say yes.
All right, let's move on to our third rookie, shall we? So we talked about Jane, 48 appearances, talked about Emil, 52 appearances. And now it's time to talk about a big fan favorite who I think made a second half push in a big way. Ashley Padilla, who's going to finish with a 44.1, 14th place, 56 minutes, 32 seconds. So getting an hour of screen time in your first year. I know the episode count can vary, but that's a good thing. So she came very close. 59 segments, which is almost 3 a show, right, John? 2.95. Start alongside fellow Groundlings alum Heidi Gardner, 39 shared segments. And this is what I want to open with. 71.5% in live sketch. So if she didn't get the Joanne Fabrics character, which we all loved, it was a great breakout moment, then, that'd be up to 85 right there. So that's huge. And I want to start with that. Is Ashley's sketch appearances. It's all sketch other than the Trump cold open and the Joanne Fabrics update. So Italian restaurant commercial with Paul Mescal, 4 minutes 29. The Bill Burr, I got one, 4 gorgeous dogs, 3:19. Deathly Diner with Goggins playing Goggins' wife with the Bowen Ego spooky restaurant, 3:09. Tableside Guac playing Keaton's wife, 2:32. Icebreaker sketch, End of John Hamm, the 10-1, 2:07. Grandma's Birthday with Chalamet, 2:06. And then recently in the finale, the local news stories with ScarJo playing the co-anchor of Kenan was 1:47. So those are all different episodes. They're all being a very substantial second person or lead in the case of Mescal and Bill Burr. So this is somebody, if you want to look at how a rookie season should work, Ashley Padilla seems like the SNL fit, and I feel really good about it. So, John, I want to go to you first.
I mean, this is what happens when you go to the Groundlings and you find someone with talent and then bring them onto the show. It is just such a shorter leash for them to figure out how this show works. And there's still plenty of room to grow for Ashley, but she's had one of the better rookie seasons that I've seen in a while. I said I think she's one of the best prospects the show's had in, I don't know, since probably Kate and 80 and Cecily. I really think she's a generational prospect that we have here. And I'm just so insanely impressed with her. I think what's interesting about the 71.5% live sketch is it just shows how much they trust having her in the most important parts of the show. I cannot wait to see how that translates to year 2 in terms of the role types that she gets in those sketches, because she's getting a lot of B rolls and C rolls. And I think she's inching towards those A rolls. So to me, the runway that she has is, just as high as it gets. There is potential here that you're looking at the next all-time great. She just has to go out and do it. But I'm really, really impressed with the metrics that we see here from Ashley in her first year.
Agreed. This is definitely my favorite rookie, probably since James Austin Johnson, somebody that I think just never seems nervous. Haven't seen her drop a line or read a cue card, really. And I think a good comp might be a Chloe Fineman, right? Can kind of just be a pretty white girl in a sketch and have a couple lines. But I'm looking at Chloe's stats.
I could not disagree with that sentiment more.
Well, I'm saying that of the roles they might get when they're just being like, all right, put the 4th cast member in a sketch. Chloe and Ashley are not the same style, but when you write a sketch and there's 5 people in it, you could say, oh, put Chloe in this. Okay, let's put Ashley in it. I want to look at Chloe's power ranking, 35.4 rookie year, 41.4 second year, 39.0 third year. So Ashley Padilla has had a better metrically better season in her rookie year than Chloe Fineman had in her first 3. Bill, reaction from you?
Not surprising, really. I mean, there's something, and John says it, about the Groundlings. I gravitate towards Groundlings. I love Second City. I love UCB. But there's something about a Groundling coming to SNL all the way back to Lorraine, obviously Phil and Heidi, and so many big names on the Forte, exactly, where John, I think you just said it perfectly. They just seem to get it more. It's almost as if they did their 4 years in college ball, and they're going right to the majors because they were able to figure it out. And I love Ashley. One of my favorite rookies too in the last few years. I love Trost as well, and so I'm afraid to praise Ashley too much because that burned me last year. But yeah. More well-rounded. The pieces that she got on, starting with the Keaton episode, were just fantastic. The four dogs that you mentioned, Mike, wouldn't smell like that. She just has so many great moments that you could put on a reel of best of SNL 50. I don't think you could say that about the other two rookies. If you're going to put a 10-minute segment out about the greatest moments in the 50th season, Ashley would be in there somewhere. So yeah, tons of potential. We'll see how the cast shakes out. If everybody comes back, some of the roles that would have went to Ashley will still be going to Heidi. Will still be going to Sarah. So that'll be interesting to see, because there is only so many white girl roles that you can fill, but a lot of potential here.
But I think the major difference between her and anyone else on the cast is like Ashley has this ability to disappear. Like she could just become the character that she's playing, and Ashley Padilla is no longer there, but the person she's playing in the sketch has now taken over her body. And I don't feel like we have that with the other cast members, or at least the other women on the show right now. Like maybe Ego can do that really well. I think she's probably the other one, but Ashley's bringing something to the show as with her acting abilities that has been missing for me for a while.
I'm glad you brought that up, John, because I was thinking about Kate McKinnon and Kristen Wiig, who in the past 25 years, I think you would have to say are the two top women. I know that Cecily and Adie are right there, and you want to go back and you have Amy Poehler before that, so maybe I'll shorten that leash a little bit. But they're two cast members who would be character first. There's a difference. I know there's only one season of tape, to use an NFL analogy on Ashley, but Kate and Kristen are just play bigger, and a lot of times it can seem redundant. I know many seasons of tape on them, and they're two of the greats, so I adore Kate and Kristen. But Ashley has a nuance that I don't think the cast has seen, at least from a rookie, for a while, that give her one line and she'll just deliver it in a way, won't steal the sketch, won't eat the scenery, doesn't have to be crazy, but we'll just get a laugh on a line that might not have gotten a laugh from the next person on the bench.
Yeah, I also think it's really great that she's on there with Heidi, because the thing that I described about Ashley is something that I feel like Heidi did really well at the beginning of her career, and Heidi sort of like stretched and become like this awesome person to put in a sketch and stabilize it. But she also, when you first saw Heidi on Update, she also really was great into character. I just think, Bill, it would be so fascinating to imagine what a rookie Ashley Padilla would have looked like in the Kristen Wiig era, or in, maybe towards the beginning of the Kate era, where we were still in an era where recurring characters meant success on the show, and like how Ashley would have succeeded there to sort of develop a character that she sort of pushed into being on the live show. In this era of the show, she doesn't have the pressure of having a recurring character to be successful. And I am curious, as the show is looking to, like I said, build their next stars, what we will see from her next year. Do we get that thing that's like, this is the Ashley character that we will then see again and again?
Yeah, I would like to see her more at Update, more with characters, maybe follow the Heidi path as far as that goes. But you Mike, you mentioned Kristen and Kate and Amy, and I think another thing that she has in common with those three unbelievable women is something about her facial expressions, and it's hard to kind of quantify, but you can imagine in your mind's eye a Kristen Wiig look to the camera without being hammy, without being Carol Burnett-esque. Like, you can imagine a Kate McKinnon look, and I think Ashley has that. I think when you see her she was in a lot of restaurant sketches, the way she's looking at Keaton in her first moment there, the way she's in that Icebreakers with John Hamm. And again, there's simple lines there where she forgets what she's supposed to be talking about in the Icebreakers. So she says that she, what's her favorite part of being a woman? And she says, my breasts. And it's such a simple line, and given by somebody else, she's like, oh God. But she really delivers a simple line like that with the facial expression that makes you laugh out loud. So I think that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to seeing with her as well.
So I'll start the predictions. Ashley Padilla back. I asked Andrew Dick and John Schneider last week as my final question of the year, or my second to last question, what would be the most shocking cast news? You would never think a rookie not being brought back would be shocking, but I would be shocked if SNL does not retain the contract of Ashley Padilla, even more than Trost. And I love Trost, Bill. Don't get me wrong. You know, Little Orphan Cassidy has a plaque on my wall upstairs. But with Ashley Padilla, for not really having breakout moments to win us over as a community and as a podcast, with those looks, with those lines, that would be crazy. So, John, prediction?
I no doubt she's back. I'll give you two historical comparisons for the SPE. So she's at a 2.95 for through 20 episodes. I'd say the two closest around the same episode mark. So the rookies that weren't asked back who did as well analytically, Chris Elliott from season 20. So again, a situation where if he had come onto the show at a different time, probably there for many more seasons. And Tim Robinson. I mean, again, a guy who like totally had the potential to be like an all-time great on the show and just circumstantially didn't work out. But these are like people who come on with very distinct personalities and like had the ceiling to become these all-time greats. Didn't work out in their case. I have a really good feeling about Ashley. So I know we're all behind her and the praises there, and she has to still go out and prove it on the field. But I would be stunned if we don't see her back next year.
Could you quickly look up Abby Elliott and maybe Nassim? I'd be interested in those. And Bill, you were on By The Numbers with me when Chloe Fineman was out. Remember, she was missed an episode, and I said, and Ashley had a breakout night. I go, did Chloe just get Wally pipped? You know, did she get taken out of the lineup and Ashley got put in? And, you know, we'll never relinquish that spot. Tom Brady always said, you know, he was fighting for his job every week, even though he was the GOAT and won 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Super Bowls, didn't want to give up the ball. So I think that could be a case if Chloe Fineman doesn't return. We're going to talk about her soon enough, that Ashley Padilla has this like gigantic runway to like soar in the cast, not to be cheesy. But John, do you find those numbers?
Yeah. So you're looking for the career numbers or the first year numbers?
Either that you have, but yeah, I guess rookie's more appropriate, but either way.
Okay, so career number for Abby Elliott is a 3.06. So very close to what we got from Ashley here just for her career. Abby did 81 episodes. So in her rookie season, and I'll just give the caveat that her rookie season, she did miss the first 7 episodes, so not going to penalize her for that. She did a 2.93 for her rookie season. So that's just slightly under Ashley Padilla. 2.93 from season 34, episode 8 to season 34, episode 22. And then if we go to the next season with Nassim, who in her rookie season did 80 sketches, so 3.63. So significant jump up from Nassim in her rookie year. And I think that Nassim's SPE for her career was actually a 3.36. So a whole other level to get from Abby to Nassim. But I think that as far as like, you know, Abby early numbers, that's something to look at.
Well, I can definitely see that jump. Ashley being a 2.95 average appearance per episode, going up to like a 3.6, like you mentioned with Nassim Pedrad. I think that should be almost a given, right? Like I just imagine that, you know, Ashley did miss, you know, an early episode, right? So I'm looking at the screen time, but like, you know, had a couple like, you know, very small, you know, so the Ariana Grande, we didn't see Ashley. So
let me just say that you mentioned James Austin Johnson as a similar prospect in your mind that you were like, oh, okay, I see this. James
just
Austin
favorite.
Johnson, yeah, exactly. Well, JJ in his rookie season 47, put up a 2.42, so significantly worse than Ashley. But then in his second season, he jumps up to a 3.4. So Ashley sort of between them, but like you see the significant jump up in the sophomore year. And I think like we are all expecting, like if right now we're looking at 2.95s, I would expect more like a 3.5 for Ashley in year 2.
And Jadge had a 3 minutes and 17 second average screen time versus Ashley's average, which is 250. So appearances versus screen time, of course, matter. But let's go on to our other recently promoted player who might have, you know, a big role next season. I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to be Michael Longfellow, somebody whose stats have never jumped off the page, right? So it's somebody that has, I think there's like a deadhead DMB kind of like cult following around Longfellow because everyone talks about him, right? But we don't see him a ton. 54 minutes, 51 seconds. So that's looking at the screen time totals. I mean, we just talked about Ashley almost hitting an hour. Longfellow did not. So if I look at the screen time totals, he's behind Ashley. Yeah, exactly. So he's ahead of the rookies and is ahead of Devon, but didn't get to an hour in a 20 episode season. Not great. 49 appearances, 2.45 on the SPE. Shared segments with, out of 49 appearances, I guess, over half were with Mikey Day. So that's 27. Here's the breakdown. 11.5% on Weekend Update. He came on as a rookie, as an update kind of star, right? Kind of a la Pete Davidson, Kyle Mooney. They did that. Cecily did that in her first episode. And we saw it frequently. Had to wait a little bit, but we saw the TikTok stand up and then the Real ID stand up recently, which, I did a full Zapruder-like analysis on By the Numbers when that happened to read between the lines. 49.7% live sketch, 20.1% cold open. Man, John, these Trump freeze frames really make the power ranking important because the screen time gets really messed up on those.
So what type of role do you give those background people in the tableaus?
Oh, it's a C all day because they're live there, but they're not close to a B or an A, which is why I said that the power ranking becomes extra important to mitigate that garbage time, as they call it, and 16.5% in pre-tape. So I've been saying now for 2 years, as a featured player, give Longfellow a lead in a pre-tape. We finally got two. It was the Oedipal arrangements on the for the Valentine's sketch there with Chalamet that Chalamet did not appear in. So Longfellow, was the lead. He had that kind of dark energy and that Longfellow flavor that we only really saw in little bits and pre-tapes, and then finally Goth Kid on Vacation. After that with Jack Black. So we finally got some Longfellow pre-tape time, but this is an interesting case because the numbers for a recently promoted player are not good, but if the update desk has a vacancy and he fills it, then the stock is extremely high, Bill.
I feel like everyone should just pause here, go to our season 49 roundtable wrap up, and just play the Longfellow, because that's exactly what we were talking about last year, right? Are Che and Jost going to leave? Are they going to leave at Christmas? Is this going to be something that he gets to take over? And I don't know. I mean, what did we learn from the finale? Not very much. Obviously, Kenan afterwards in an article was saying that, there's going to be a lot of changes and things like that. I don't know. So if they come back, where does Longfellow go? I mean, can he continue to wallow, not even middle of the pack, towards the bottom of the pack, without a lot to really point to? I mean, his update pieces are great. He really has a niche there, and he has such a cult following. You can hear the audience just erupt when he gets on stage. And I made the comparison, I think, last year to early Fallon when he would go on Colin Quinn's update and people would just scream and be so excited. So can he find a lane? And now going into season 4, if it's not update, where is it? Because he's playing a waiter, he's playing a second fiddle in a lot of sketches. So I'm a little concerned. If we get word that Che and Jost are coming back, does that mean Longfellow's gone?
I think that would be the worst case scenario for Longfellow's SNL career. I've been saying it's update or bust, because I'm looking at his appearances this season, and like I did with Jane, take out the kind of outliers, the weekend updates and those cold opens. It is the water park. It's number 1, 319 screen time. He was like the boyfriend in the Chalamet Bungie sketch, 250 of screen time. He got 236 in the Good Will Hunting pre-tape with Bill Burr. That was a good A role for him. And then other than that, unless I do the pre-tapes, which I mentioned, the Goth Kid and the Oedipal arrangements, it's the game shows. So it's the Mikey Madison when she hosted the game show. So like, what are we? It's the guess the correct answer with John Hamm. People have made the hater comparisons. I don't see him as hater really at all. I don't never seen that, but they filled that role, I guess. So is Kenan. He's nothing like hater. And other than that, it's a lot of background work. It's like the birthday at Friendlies and the service dogs, bald guys, Peanuts Christmas, things that he didn't shine in at all. He was just a guy in the background. So for a live sketch performer, much like Jane, hasn't really shown us that. But to compare to Ashley, I think that when he gets the chance, he can twist a line, has an attitude, and has a darkness that makes him stand out from a Mikey Day, a Devon Walker, a Marcello, a Kenan. So I think that's playing for him, John.
Yeah, it's interesting. I almost feel like the problem with Michael Longfellow on the show is that he has the danger of a cast member from the 90s, but he's in like the body of like a pretty boy from the 2000s and 2010s. So it's almost like incongruent with each other, where on its face, like he's not like his comedy voice doesn't match like his aesthetic in a way. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but I feel like, just seeing him on Update in the last run made me feel like there is such a clear path for him if the show was willing to go in that direction, that it would be such a shame if they didn't follow through on that promise. And look, I think that Michael Longfellow actually had a pretty good season. I just wish it wasn't in his third season. Like, if this was what he did as a rookie, I'd be like, oh, good, this is really good. But I just think, like, as we get into the later stages of his career, it's hard not to like see him continue to like spread his wings. And I think he had his moments. Like, obviously he got his sketch on with Nate Bargatze, that waterslide sketch. Then he does the What's That Name in the Millennia episode. He has like some pretty good Update moments. Like, he has the edible arrangements we talked about, like Goth Kid on Vacation. Like, he has moments throughout the season that I'm really happy with, because I am like a big Michael Longfellow fan. I just want more. I think we all just want to see more, and that's like what we're asking for here. So this, to me, I think if this was it for him, I think would be maybe the most disappointing story for the fans in a while, to see someone on for so many seasons and just not have the opportunity to see what their ceiling truly is on the show. I just don't know. I wish we had a better. I was really hoping by now we would have an answer for what the future is.
I think season 50 being what it was and how big it was maybe scared Lauren a little bit. Let's be honest. You want to have consistency. You want to have faces people know. So guess what's coming up? Season 51. John, I heard you mention on the roundtable on Monday night that it could be the first normal season in a while, right? We've had COVID. We've had elections now twice since, 46 and now 50. This is a fresh start. Bill, you mentioned the Kenan quote about, big changes. I think there is a fork in the road of either Jost and Shay or one of each staying or going a different direction on Update. And then there's the other path in the road, which is you give Michael Longfellow Update, and that's the next path. So, Bill, my opinion is the road that you don't put him on Update could be one of the biggest, like, what could have beens that we're witnessing like in real time. So if that doesn't happen, will he be back? And just what's your final thought on Longfellow? Because he recently got promoted, but the stats haven't really improved.
I think he'll have a show on Netflix like Tim Robinson by December, if that's the case, if he doesn't get Update. I don't know. I really can't see him coming back if we know by July whether Che or Jost are coming back, because there's just not a whole lot to point to. I think the Mikey Madison sketch is probably his best live sketch. That you can't just hang your hat on one or two sketches an entire season when you're going into your fourth year. So I don't see him coming back if he doesn't get Update.
I think he will come back, regardless of whether he gets updated or not. And I think that if he doesn't, I think he has one more year non-update in him. I know we're all like clamoring for post 50 to see like an update change, but like I think I could do a fourth year of Michael Longfellow. And I think that Devon and Longfellow's career stats are really similar. Like some of the seasons of the three, like one does better than the other, but they're very similar. They're both stand-ups. They're both still trying to find their place on the show. I just think the difference between Devon and Michael Longfellow is Michael Longfellow has a clearly defined brand and Devon doesn't. And like I talked about that, like why I think there's like some incongruency there. And I think the chat made some really good points about how like that's what makes him special, is that like he has this aesthetic, but he has that dangerous side behind him. And that's what makes him interesting. And because we've seen that in spurts, I think he definitely should come back for that fourth season, even if he doesn't get update, just to see if he can expand on that any further. But like that would be my limit personally, is like I would give it a fourth season. If this doesn't get significantly better, then it's update or bust.
And John, it's my belief that he was retained to be the Jimmy Garoppolo of Tom Brady. He was retained to stay there, get a new contract, not literally, but to be on the bench to take that role, because I mentioned with Jane, I asked both of you the question, and I could ask it again. I'm not going to. It's a little redundant, but can you succeed with relying on update? And we kind of talked about how maybe it's not sustainable. Of course, Longfellow has some flashes, but screen time average, rookie year, 231, not bad. We saw Ashley's and Jane's and Emil's earlier. A minute 59, he did drop off in 49, much to the fact that the update appearances weren't always there. And now this year, only 2 update appearances, but 245 screen time average for a total of 54, 51. There's not a lot of room for him to be an Ashley in the male side of the cast. Like I don't see Michael Longfellow being a Mikey Day or a Kenan ever. So with that being said, if you're not a pre-tape guy, you have to find a way somewhere else.
Yeah, sorry. I think that the numbers of Weekend Update here, where we see that he's in 11.5% Weekend Update screen time and only appeared on Update twice in 20 episodes, for a guy who clearly is at his best when he's on Update, is like a major production decision that I disagree with. Like, I think this is the type of person that whether he's going to be an Update anchor or not, he needs to be on Update once every 5 episodes, like at least
absolutely
4 times a season.
When is he not crushed on Update, Bill? Like I can't think of one appearance that wasn't like a B+ to an A+, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, never. I mean, he's always been on when he's been on Update. His first year, he was getting a lot of the crazy costumes and things like that. But just being himself, coming out and doing 5 minutes of his stand-up routine, it is a killer every single time.
So we know where I stand. He will be back. He'll be wearing a tie. He'll be at the desk. That's my prediction. So I think John and Bill, maybe not at Update, but you think he'll both be back.
I'll put my money on it right now. He'll be back. If he doesn't get Update in 52, he will not be back.
Absolutely.
I will say it's 50-50 right now, and just based on Update. If he doesn't get Update in 51, he's not back.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to an interesting case, because had some zeros in the score this season, and somebody who I see doing a lot outside of SNL, that's Chloe Fineman, finishing in 12th, powering a 54.1. So we just looked at Ashley at a 44.1, Longfellow at a 44.4. So I don't want to underscore that Chloe Fineman's in that group, because she is 10 points ahead of both of those players in the cast. So 54.1 is where Chloe Fineman finishes, even though had a couple of shutouts and a sick, absence and outside the cast number in there. So Chloe Fineman did not have a bad season, but we have to contextualize that she started in season 45. This is now season 50 stats talking about. Here are the numbers: 62 segments, a 3.1 sketch per episode number. Her breakdown should be noted 0 on update. Only cast member of the season who did not appear on Weekend Update. So that's going to hurt the screen timer episode for sure. 75.1 live sketch number. Huge. 5.5 cold open. These are percentages. 3.3 monologue. 16.1 pre-tape. And had a 3-way tie. Out of anyone in the cast, is the only person with a 3-way tie. Dismukes, Heidi, and Sarah. 35 shared segments. Screen time was 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 15 seconds for Chloe Fineman, who is the classmate of Bowen Yang. So compare those two careers. They couldn't be more different. But, Bowen had a little slow start, and now he's top of the rankings. Chloe Fineman's at number 12. John, over to you.
Yeah, so if I was drawing it up and I was producing the show, I would put Chloe in the exact situation that she's in right now, which is like, give her as many sketches as she needs to be not the center of attention of those sketches, because she's a very, very good B player and C player. When we've tried to give her A roles beyond just an impression, I don't think it works for her personally, but I think she's a really solid sketch player to help assist another person's sketch. So for me, I'm totally fine with this. When you have a player like that, though, and I do think every cast may need like 1 or 2 of these players. When you have a player like that, I think the expectation for them, though, is like, do they want to keep doing the show that way? Because I don't think that there's any higher ceiling for Chloe. Like, I think this is it. This is exactly where this is the top of the mountain for her. So if she wants to move on to doing other things in her career, I know she just put out a movie. She's obviously been in fashion for a long time. She has a lot of success and popularity off of the show. I could definitely see her leaving after this year because she's, in my opinion, I think she's done all that she can do on this show. It's just that I think that if I'm producing the show, I'm like, all right, Chloe, like, happy to have you around, but you're just not going to get any more from me.
Bill, this is my number 1 prediction of cast departure is Chloe Fineman. And I will point to a number because this is by the numbers, is looking at the improvement after 47. So remember the departures of 47. It was, Melissa, Alex, Pete, Kyle, 80, Kate, and then we had a little Cecily the next year until Christmas. So you would imagine that being a woman in the cast in waiting, you're going to see a huge jump. And Chloe got that. So looking at her power ranking, I mentioned earlier, 35, 41, 39, jumps up to a 78. So that's a great number in season 48. Has since flatlined completely at a 66. So like John just said, it's perfectly said. This is the Chloe Fineman ceiling. She's never going to be a Kate, 80, or Cecily. Like, the numbers, the eye test, we just know that. The room for impressions seems to have dropped off. We saw her do like Nicole Kidman, Drew Barrymore, and some impressions she does very well. And even that has kind of like teetered out. So Bill, like, do you see a path forward that is not the same? Or are you in my camp that it's kind of like, I think this is kind of it. And honestly, her opportunities might be better than SNL. I think she probably doesn't need SNL to forward her career. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm completely with you, Mike. She's number 1 for me as far as people who will probably leave. Last year, we were just kind of amazed at how much she had moved up. I think she had jumped up to number 8. And, we thought this might be a turning point, and it clearly was not. All the opportunities were there, and that's fine. As John said, this is who she is. She's very good at it, but she's not going to take those higher roles, especially with somebody like Ashley coming up, Sarah getting a lot of those straight roles that would have gone to somebody like Chloe. So, yeah, I think this is it for her. There's so little to point to for her this year. The Jennifer Coolidge with Dana and Ariana was really, really great. The Waffle House successor, Spring Break with Marcello, was one of my favorites. But it's just not there, and she gets lost in the crowd. And the fact that she missed 3 episodes, one for sickness, but it feels like it's over.
Wow, Bill, you nailed that. She was 8th last year. Holy shit, I wouldn't have known that. 67 last year, 4 points behind Ego, and about 4 or 5 ahead above Sarah. And John, I would think that like Sarah Sherman has completely lapped Chloe Fineman at this point.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Sarah, I think, brings more to sketches than Chloe can, because Sarah can take the lead in a sketch in a way that I don't think Chloe's been successful at in her previous years at the show. So, like, I think, like I said, I think we're in a better spot with Chloe, because at least we're not dealing with the whole like love hate of seeing her voice in sketches. And when she does do something, it's not like she's like overpowering in it. Like she did the big dumb line thing with Bowen, the 8 Girl Thanks. Like she did a couple things with Bowen this year, the 8 Girl Thanksgiving, Forever 31. I believe she wrote that one. And that was like all of the women. So like, even when she's writing stuff with writers to get on the show, it's still that she's not like the primary focus of those things. So I think she's landed in a good spot. So to me, this is one of those situations where I think the show will keep her if she wants to be there. I will predict that I think that she's going to leave. The factor that I can't help but bring up, if we're just going to put everything on the table, is that her boyfriend, Jake Nwodim, is a prolific writer at the show right now, is like one of the most, successful writers right now, gets on the most there. So, is that, does she want to continue to work with him and stay on the show? And again, like if Chloe wants to come back, that's fine. I just don't know where the improvement will be. And I think she'll continue to stay around this mark moving forward. Interesting historical comp, Mike, that I thought I would point out if this is it for Chloe Fineman. So Chloe Fineman, a 3.17 sketch per episode average for her career. Of course, her absence this year being sick, I don't count that against her career numbers, but 3.17 in 116 episodes. I'll compare that to a 3.21 in 121 episodes for Alex Moffat, who I think is another interesting case, just to go side by side, where I know a lot of people were rooting for Alex to get more on the show, but sort of like ended up being this type of person for his career. That B-roll, C-roll guy who helped other sketches, who had some good moments, and that was that.
I think Moffat's a pretty good comp, honestly. I think Moffat maybe left a little early considering the cast changes, but he stayed a decently long time in that bench spot, so he didn't really break through, but was a good live sketch performer. And I always say Moffat's like one of the few in the last 10, 15 years who like never broke. So I can't say that for Chloe, but somebody who could be utility. And John, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Mikey Day, traffic, parking, ferry altercation. We both agree that's Chloe Fineman's legacy. So this is her final year. She did it twice. She has 3 appearances this year of 3 minutes or more. 321 in the Marty Short parking lot altercation, 338 in the Maybelline sketch, and 347 in the ferry altercation sketch when Quinta came back. So if this is it for Chloe, I'm glad that we got to see that twice more. And, I think that if they bring that back, right for a good Chloe Fineman cameo with her boyfriend still on the staff, that would make sense. Like, get Chloe in the building. We're gonna do it for a 4th time.
Yeah, and how good is she at the two-hander just side by side with Mikey?
Oh, great 2-hander. We love people who can play, with other people in sketch. That's what you meant, right, John?
Yes, totally.
See what he did there.
All right, let's move on. Number 11, a lot to talk about here. This is a little bit of a surprise, I'm sure, for people, Mike, to see this guy down here at 11.
Oh, here we go.
Say about him.
All right, yeah. It's funny, end of year, me and John have a lot of, sifting through data to go through and get these graphics up for you, loyal listeners. And Bill, I mean, you've been with me for this long. It's kind of getting ridiculous. The vultures that attack me on Michael Che and Colin Jost. They do the same job, right? Like, why they have the same screen time? It's just not the case. I don't know. I don't make the rules. I'm not a cameraman at SNL. I don't write the jokes. But here we have Michael Che, who is in 11th place with a perfect Michael Che line score, 60.0. Of course, he was in 20 segments this year, all weekend updates. So that averages him out to 1 per episode. He had 0 live from New York's. He's never said live from New York. So if we had a cold open, I know we had Trump, but if Michael Che said live from New York, you can bet that that's his last episode. Shared segments, of course, with Colin Jost, 20 of those. Screen time was 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 26 seconds. His peak was, though, in the finale, of course, with Miss Eggy and a second joke swap. Bill, I'm going to start with you. Why does Michael Che get less screen time than Colin Jost?
I mean, Jost has to be number 10, right, Mike? I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense, and it's going to be so close.
Screen time has to be lockstep.
Yeah, exactly. That damn Michael Che. I think this was quite
the 90s, Bill.
It's the 90s. It's quite a resurgence for the Che and Jost pair this season. I know some people are sick of them. I don't care. I still love them. And he cut back on a lot of the Colin Quinn-esque self-referential stuff that he was doing last year. Not all of it. There was still some of it, crossing out the jokes as, oh, that one didn't work. But he cut back on that, kept it to it's the 90s. And, we got the best joke swap ever, I think, at Christmas. And that's in large part to Michael Che's writing. So, yeah, I'm not surprised. And I can't wait to talk about Jost at number 10.
I'm going to go to you, John. I have nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to say here about Che, who I also think had a great season. I was sort of like, well, I don't want him to leave, but I want to be able to celebrate his career. So that's, part of it. Again, not appearing once off of Weekend Update this season is a little bit interesting in the 50th season. Like you would have expected that a little bit more. I think, part of the reason why we do get such a large disparity between Jost and Che is truly the amount of correspondence that go on either side of the desk. And I did the math, Bill, 24 correspondents on Jost's side, 12 on Che's side. And I took out the 2 for Miss Eggy. So he's literally doubling up on him this season for correspondence on his side. So that's certainly a factor when it comes to screen time. But it's actually the first season since season 46 that he's appeared only on Weekend Update. So, focusing on the things he does best, clearly he's doing a good job. He actually wrote some good sketches this season as well. Fun fact, Bill, I probably said this in a different show, but fun fact that Michael Che has the worst career SPE for anyone in the history of the show, except for 2 people. Do you want to guess who those 2 people are?
Well, John, maybe we are in reruns here. You did ask
that
exact same question last year, and you got
me.
Did
you rewatch the show?
Yeah, I did.
Okay,
no, but I did remember that anyway because you.
I knew when I said it. I was like, I sounds like I said this before.
Yeah. But Emily Prager and Laurie Metcalf. Yeah.
Okay, good. Right. Just if you're checking if this is a John Goodman rerun.
So one of the interesting things to me, you said about the Live from New York, that will he get a Dennis Miller-esque, even though that was false? Dennis had said it 5 years earlier. Will he get the opening with Lorne where he's like, I've never gotten to say it?
I don't think so, but
there have been others, Bill. I'm looking at the list. Peter Aykroyd, Paul Britton, Joan Cusack, Nora Dunn. That's a surprising one. Dean Edwards, Tim Kazurinsky. John, plug the interview.
Oh, yeah. Coming out tomorrow night. Going to be great.
My question to both of you, Bill and John, is if this is the swan song from Michael Che and or Colin Jost, what will the show miss about his voice, maybe outside update? Because all the stats we see on the screen are all update. John?
Well, I mean, you got to start with the dynamic between him and Jost. I think that we had established for many years the dynamic between a man and a woman on Update and what it was like to have that fun banter between them. With Jost and Che, we didn't know what to expect, and there was sort of that awkward stage of what their friendship is going to be. But the fact that you have someone who could just completely rip apart his co-anchor during the segment in like the most fun way that makes it feel almost inviting. Like Jost has that thing about him that he says like he has a punchable face, but like Che is almost the person that gives him that brand because he invites us all into making fun of his co-anchor. So I think that's fun. I think Che's not above making fun of himself too, and we've seen that many times. So like I think that he brings a dangerous quality to the show in that he's willing to go further with jokes than I think a lot of other people would have, but he's also really willing to have fun as well. And like I said, you know, when we were sort of eulogizing them, even though maybe it was too early to do that, we are looking at what is potentially the greatest update duo in the history of the show.
Do you wish we saw Che somewhere else this season? I feel like it's always really fun. So if it is the last season, that'll be my regret as a Michael Che fan, Bill, is that we didn't see him even in a pre-tape. We saw that Chloe Fineman with Benedict Cumberbatch episode where we saw, you know, Che like say like, you know, I'm done, leave, you know, dragging his suitcase, or we saw him with the PDD premiere last year with Pete Davidson with the Kings of Comedy spoof. So I would have liked to see, if this is it for Michael Che anyway, or otherwise, I would have liked to see him at least kind of branch out once or twice like Jost did.
Definitely. I would have loved to seen him in The Lonely Island. Here We Go. That would have been a really, especially with Colin getting arrested.
Oh, it would have been perfect, Bill. That's a great call.
Yeah, but if this is the end, yeah, no doubt about it, the best duo to ever do it, probably the best to ever do it between him and Jost. It's close. I know we've had that debate among a couple other people, but yeah, Che, you know, the show is never going to be dangerous again. The show is never going to be what it was in 1975 or even in 1982. But Che is as close as we get. The closest we've got.
Yeah, we almost that 1982 update.
Well, not update. I mean the show in general. But yeah, no news break with Brian Doyle Murray. But yeah, Che is the closest we've gotten since Norm with the danger and not really knowing what we're going to get. So I will definitely miss that if that's the case.
I'll wrap up Michael Che by giving this number out so people don't come at me. I know everyone likes to say, well, Jost did appear more because he did. He had 26 appearances versus Michael Che's 20. But Colin Jost averages this season 2 minutes, 10 seconds more screen time than Michael Che. So that's where the number is.
Yeah. Crazy
Not
stuff
unusual. There. All right, John, let's move on.
All right, let's keep going. Top 10, Mike. We're getting close.
Getting the top 10. We're at an hour 47. I think we're in pretty good shape, John. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good right here. Tight hour 47. All right. Okay, let's talk about this guy, Mike. Where do you want to start?
All right. Well, this is, if you're a longtime SNL Stats, SNN, BTN listener, you would have had to stay up pretty late to hear us talk about Kenan Thompson. But here he is cracking the top 10. He is at a 66.4 power ranking. So he's 6.4 ahead of Michael Che. And he's very far behind the number 9 person we'll talk about next. So Kenan is kind of in a league of his own right now. He's at number 10, but he's kind of the only person in that mid-range. He had an hour, 27 minutes, and 56 seconds of screen time. Also, you know, right in line with Michael Che. But he had 64 segment appearances, 3.2 average per episode, 2 live from New York's and shared segments with Mikey Day 35 times. Here's his breakdown. 63.2% live sketch. No surprise there. The camera loves Kenan. Kenan loves the camera. 10.3% pre-tape, 7.7% update, 13.4% cold open, and a 4.7% monologue. Always love a Kenan popping in the monologue, right? So at number 10, when I'd have to mention the stat trajectory of Kenan Thompson, and I will go to it after I go to the panelists here, but it's somebody who I think peaked during our podcast era. So if you look back to our previous shows and the previous numbers we've put out, Kenan, even though he was getting to his 20th season, 21st, 22nd, was the star of SNL, if not number 2, number 3. And here he is at number 10. So, John, I have to go to you first because we've been doing this since day one, and now Kenan's at number 10.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely gives like veteran athlete that is still hanging on towards the end of their career. I still think he has obviously episodes where he's going to pop and put up a vintage Kenan performance. We saw that with Quinta Brunson, and it was like, whoa, that was the Kenan that we knew for so many years. He has had like up and downs in his career, but it's just I I don't know, like in year 23 or 24 or 25 that we're gonna like get another few years of highs from him. I sort of think like this is where we're headed as he, gets older and doesn't necessarily like have the stamina to be able to like take over a show on a week to week basis. I still think there's value in keeping him around just as a veteran presence that's going to like teach the new sketch performers like how to be greats whenever they can. But it is definitely interesting, right? Like his career sketch per episode average is a 4.00 to be exact. So 442 episodes and 1,769 sketches. So we're looking at a 4.00. I usually say like auto Hall of Famer is 4 and above. So to me, he's like, beyond the longevity and his status at the show. He's like, clearly the data shows that he's a Hall of Famer, but he puts up a 3.2 SPE this season, which is more in the Chloe Fineman range of like her average season at the show. So like when you're talking about a legend putting up a season that is more of a good B or C player season, it does have your eyes open a little bit and being like, okay, I get he wanted to stick around for 50 because this is the season of all seasons, but does he want to continue to produce at this level beyond 50 when the show goes back to normal? And that's like a huge question mark for me.
I guess it's a question every year, John, right? It's like, is Kenan going to extend the record, or will it become unbeatable the second he leaves, whatever that may be? But Bill, 443 episodes. That's 44.83% of the show's run. He's verging on, getting close to being half of SNL episodes. So include episodes from 1975 until he joined the cast in 2003. So what more can you say about Kenan? I get it, but being at number 10 is a huge, huge shift. So I'd love to hear your thoughts as somebody who's been watching the show before Kenan was there and has a lot of memories about what the show looked like without him. So let's just, prophesize about a future without Kenan, possibly. I'm predicting he'll be back, but I want to know your opinion most of all, because he's been part of this show for so long that it's easy to lose sight about how he's used because you're so used to him seeing him on screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we often talk about SNL and how you mark your life by it. You could remember where you were when you were in college, what SNL was like, things like that. I'll be married 18 years in September. Kenan started before I was dating my wife. So that's the breadth of, you can say 22 years and wow, that's a lot. But when you put it in your own life perspective, it's like, that's incredible. We'll never see anything like this again, even if the show goes for 100 years. And, I don't think this is.
How old were you when you started dating your wife?
30. I just turned 30. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I don't think this is the kind of slide. I know you were trying to get an old joke in there, John, and I'm just not
This is a math show, Bill. People are listening.
No, it's all about the data, Bill.
73.
Anyway, you threw me off, John.
Fell right into it, right into the trap.
Yes, I did, as I always do with John.
Didn't even notice.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, Kenan, I don't feel it's the same kind of slide that we saw from other people who obviously didn't last nearly as long, like a Daryl Hammond, a Fred in his last couple of years, Kevin Nealon disappearing into the scenery after 7 or 8 years. Kenan is still, I think his hit rate is about as high as you can get, because I can go through all the great sketches of this season, and any of the ones that Kenan was in are pretty high up there for me. I think what we saw from him in Hey Soul Sister, The jury duty, bringing out the Quentin character that wanted to be the judge. The police station as the janitor in the Chappelle episode, where there was no Chappelle. It was just basically him and Devon going back and forth. It's classic Kenan, and every one of them is funny. So I think he's staying. I don't think we're going to see him leave at this point. But the fact that he's not number one anymore doesn't mean that he can't contribute highly.
And John, to wrap up, Kenan he can be utility, and Kenan reacts and do Steve Harvey on Family Feud. We saw that this season. Looking at his top appearances that weren't background, weren't update. He brought back Sexual Harassment Charlie with Chris Rock, Family Feud Cold Open, and Addicts Anonymous was a recent one where he was the lead in, looking for drugs at the meeting in the Quinta episode. Other than that, there weren't a lot. Bill mentioned the police station. That's a good one. And I would say the Will and Todd's Radical Experience, also with Quinta, that vintage Kenan night. And then the Mike Myers elevator ride as a yay. So is the Kenan ceiling just lowering enough that you have questions about the future, or is it just going to stay there and it's all good?
Kenan has nothing left to prove as far as I'm concerned. I think he is. I had him at 6 on my all-time cast members list. I don't think he can go higher than that. I don't think he'll probably go lower than that unless somebody comes along and gets into that top 5 for me. But as far as he has an argument for GOAT status based on longevity alone, what he represents to this show, what he's done for diversity at the show is unmatched. He obviously has a ton of highs over the years. His hit rate, as Bill said, is really strong. When he gets that lead opportunity, he usually crushes it. It's just really interesting to see him take that step back so late into his career, because we've never seen another SNL career like this. There's never been around for as long as he has. So he's in uncharted waters as to what someone typically would do in their 22nd, 23rd, and 24th year. He's writing the book as we speak, Mike. So if he wants to stick around and keep going, I'm fascinated to see what the contribution will be. My hope is that him staying around will not ever, block a new person from achieving their all-time great potential. But beyond that, it is great to be able to celebrate Kenan in the 50th season. I'm curious, how that looks in season 51 is if he's producing these same numbers that he did in 50.
I think this cast member in particular is the most important to showcase the ebbs and flows of the power ranking, because he's at 10th. So I will say that I'm doing the stats in season 44. He was at 115 in season 44. That's the highest number I have him at. 77 next year, 78 the year following, and 46. And then at 87 and 47, and a 106 and 48. That was the year, John, we were like, wow, Kenan still has it. We talked about a lot of sketch appearances he had that were we had actually seen maybe things we hadn't seen from Kenan. Then 81 last year, and then a 55 about this year, right? 66.4. Sorry, I shortchanged you, Kenan. But the drop off is not really precipitous. It's a harder drop. So I think that going forward, maybe Kenan has just kind of not accepted, but embraced where he is right now. That's all I can say about Kenan.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's move on deeper in the top 10. This is somebody that won the MVP poll, right, John? On the roundtable on Monday night. And I know why. So Kenan, 66.4. This cast member, 75.7 is Marcello Hernandez, who, looking at his classmates' total appearances, you have Marcello Hernandez. This is the the total here: 172. Michael Longfellow, 149. Devon Walker, 150. So look at the macro of their careers. You can see that Marcello is in the lead. Look at this season. I think easily eye test, Marcello had the biggest year. Maybe not stat-wise, but eye test-wise. Domingo, debuting, recurring in the 50th. Huge. Acting teacher, debuting, recurring. Couple you can't believe it together, debuting, recurring. Sabado Gigante, debuting, recurring. That's, I could end right there. But here's the stats. 66 segments, 1 hour, 38 minutes, 17 seconds of screen time, finishing ninth in the power ranking, 3.3 average appearances per episode. Saw him most with James Austin Johnson playing Marco Rubio, the new Secretary of State, helped with that number, as well as the screen time and cold opens. Here's his breakdown. 56.8% live sketch, 17.4% weekend update, 14.5% cold open, 8.1% in pre-tape, and 3.3% in monologue. So I think Marcello's brand in SNL, out of SNL, has exploded. People now know his name, know his face, if you didn't already. And somebody that SNL, I think, has put a lot of stock into, Bill. So give me your thoughts on the promotion year of Marcello, just what he's brought to the show, really.
Yeah, Mike, I think the show was listening to you, because last year you said with the great year that he had, that he needed to have recurring characters. And boy, did they listen, because everything you just listed, incredible season. Your mileage may vary on Domingo, bringing it back so much and so quickly, but what a badge of honor in a show that was, rife with classic sketches and bringing all these different cast members back to SNL 50, to have Domingo right in the middle of that, to kind of highlight this new star. Just you can't say enough about Marcello. He's clearly becoming the face of the show. I know that Bowen has been one of the faces of the show for the last couple of years. I think Marcello has overtaken him in that regard. Marco Rubio, the impression's not great, but it's fine. It's serviceable. And the acting teacher was a great thing that we saw. The couple at the bar that we saw in the finale with Bad Bunny was really, really good. And the boyfriend in The Long Goodbye with Gaga. I mean, it's just, you could just go on and on and on with all the things that he brought to the show. He's young, he's handsome, he's funny. Of course, he's going to be one of the faces of the show. So good on him.
And John, going to go over to you, but I know it's not canonical. No one yell at me, but I'm looking at the SNL 50 screen time. Just interesting, because Domingo, of course, we know that recurred, but Domingo, he appears at the end of the sketch. It's really Chloe and Dismukes and the Kel squad that carry it, Domingo being the big finale. So here are the screen time leaders of SNL 50, and I will stop when I get to Marcello, because I'm going to list some legends here. Kenan, Amy Poehler, Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, Kate McKinnon, Maya Rudolph, Fred Armisen, Adam Sandler, Sudeikis, Marcello. I know he's in the incumbent cast and had a recurring sketch, but that was only a minute 17. He also appeared in Scared Straight, so 2 appearances, 446 in SNL 50, to give you some, other color to his numbers here. It's pretty big for a current cast member in his 3rd year to have a big role in SNL 50, John. So what can you say about Marcello Hernandez?
I think it's great. He had a career year here, 3.3 sketch per episode average. His career SBE is 2.97, so continues to do great. I do agree completely with you that the eye test tells the story a little bit more than the numbers with Marcello, in that you could see just how much of a presence he is, that he continues to develop. It's no wonder he was voted the MVP. You mentioned Adam Sandler. I think that's a really interesting comparison career-wise from Sandler to Marcello, both guys who just came on with really strong personalities that I think have like a, little bit of a love-hate thing going on with, depends who you are watching the show. Like, I asked the question a few times on the roundtables this season to some of our younger panelists. I was like, what does your generation feel about Marcello? And it seems like younger people just love him. Older people, I think it's taking their time to like warm up to him, like they do with anyone who's been put in this position. But, he's a pit bull. Like, when you see him in person and you see him just run around a room, like not on SNL, and how extroverted of a personality he is, like he has that type of like star personality that if you like saw him at a cocktail party, he'd be like talking to everybody. So I just think it's the type of thing that like translates really well to SNL, even though he came from that stand-up background. He had that like following, and then he came on the show and he's like figured it out pretty quickly. So I think his path to stardom is only going to continue to grow. He's clearly the face of the future of the show. My biggest question will be, do they neuter his voice at the expense of like getting him on the show even more so his data continues to rise? Like, because I don't like right now we're getting every few episodes or every couple episodes, we're getting like a Marcello vehicle, but is there a way that he could take over the show even more without taking away his voice? I think that's the interesting balance that the show is going to have to figure out in comparison to like what they did this year with Andrew and Sarah. I don't know, Mike. What do you think about that?
I mean, would you say that Marcello, Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone dream blunt rotation?
Yes, I would.
All right, because I agree though. Because we're looking at Dismukes and Sarah ahead. Was
Marcello in that circle?
He was off the side. Is will Marcello, who's a year or two behind Sarah and Dismukes, I don't want to say suffer the same fate because their status has improved in the show, but we know, whether you love it or hate it, Marcello has a tone, he has an energy. We know what roles he gets cast in, where Sarah and Dismukes, they also have a tone and energy and have been, spread more thin, I should say, because they appear more. I think that's fair. Where Marcello could be the kind of like bad boy energy, like a kind of a Pete Davidson, could kind of have that fixture in the cast and have, the young people and the girls like him. And they don't want to kind of tarnish that by making him play second, third fiddle in a sketch. So I don't see that happening, but I see him being front and center continuing. So it's maybe not a cop-out answer, but it's kind of in line with what we're already saying. So that's kind of how I feel about Marcello in 51 anyway.
Yeah, I know I mentioned Sandler. I want to talk about some other historical comparisons for like what a 3.3 season is. So some of the other 3.3s that we've seen in SNL history for averages, we talked about Nassim before, but Nora Dunn, Molly Shannon, Sherry O'Terry. So all people who had, distinct voices and characters on the show that didn't necessarily take over the entire show, but popped to the viewers. And I think that's what we're getting with Marcello, where my expectation truly would have been coming into 50 that he would be in that top 6 of the power rankings. But this was probably better for him for his third season. And now I would like to see, like, can he maintain the successful stardom while also adding to the resume throughout the entire show? That will be fascinating in his fourth season.
I also think that Marcello can be put into anything with any host, despite having that clear voice and clear tone. Looking at his top episodes, and he's had 9 that have been 100 or higher in the power rankings. And top of the list, of course, Mikey, Madison, Lady Gaga of this season. But last year, 2 years ago, Jenna Ortega, that was his breakout moment, the Waffle House sketch and other appearances there. Shane Gillis last year and Bad Bunny last year were huge. Then Paul Mescal, Charlie XCX, and Quinta this season were huge episodes for him. After that was Michael B. Jordan's in 48. So I think that Marcello offers something where he doesn't have that limitation to any host pairing, because he could be on Update, he could be in Cold Opens, and he can be in sketches. So, Bill, do you think that, if you've been following me and John's train here, that he will kind of become more utility, or he'll stay right where he is, but only kind of gain the significance because he's becoming more of a star?
I think they'll try to find a way to bring even more characters in, because when SNL, once they find something like that, they're just going to go back and try to do that again. What I'd like to see from him is more impressions. As I said with the Rubio, you're not really getting a lot there. I bet he would be great at some impressions. The show just doesn't lean into that anymore, and we've already talked about that with Chloe. But I would love to see something along that lines and see what he can do. He does that in Sabado Gigante. That's technically an impression. So Yeah, I would like to see that. I think they'll try to make him more and more front and center.
He also had a recurring sketch come back from last year, which was Immigrant Dad Talk Show.
Right.
So he had that with Chappelle this season. So I think that's all on the table. All those recurring characters I mentioned, or impressions, as Bill's mentioning, is that I think it's a safe bet that they'll come back in 51. And whether Chloe's in the cast or anyone else, like Domingo has not taken his final bow. So that's Marcello will be back. My prediction, John. Any last thoughts?
Well, I think Marcello and his team should be really proud of the season that they just got from him. Like, all things are pointing up for him. He's clearly going to be on the show for a very long time. So future is bright. And
the casting department, like, you really hit a winner. And the writers, Jimmy Fowley, others who wrote Domingo. I mean, no one could have predicted that would have been that big. So huge hats off.
And again, part of that is just the star power of someone like Marcello, who's continuing to build a name for himself. I think he just booked a Kevin Hart movie, if I remember reading that correctly. But yeah, I mean, like, he's going to be in movies. He's only going to get bigger. It'll be just, now's the interesting point where, like, does he ever become too big for the show? Like, these are the questions we start asking as his status continues to rise. Great third season, still completely invested in Saturday Night Live, clearly a big part of their future. Can he keep it up? Does he become, does he move up different tiers of, like, okay, he's a very good cast member to a great, to an all-time great? Like, what's the ceiling for Marcello? I think it's undecided.
And looking at his last season placement, he was at, 9th at 75.7 this season. Last year at 11th. You would think, oh, not a big rise. But his score was a 60.6, so a huge gain from Marcello. And we're moving on to our next cast member who won the power rankings in season 49, and that is Mikey Day, who is at a 77.2, who had his first ever 0 in his entire career from joining the cast way back when in season 40, I think. So that's Mikey Day, who had 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 42 seconds of screen time, 67 appearances, said live from New York 4 times. His SPE this year, 3.35. No surprise. Saw him with Heidi Gardner. Shop TV came back. We love to see a Mikey Heidi pairing. And Mikey Day has always been somebody who is, I want to say, a writer first, because the writing influences his usage on a week-to-week basis. So Mikey and Streeter Seidel, who are writing partners, Streeter Seidel still in the writing room, and Mikey Day, his go-to guy to this day through all those years together. So live sketch percentage was 60.3, 20.1% cold open. We did see him as Jesus in that Trump tableau sketch. But I want to talk about Mikey Day as the guy who walked into a spider web, because I mentioned that on By the Numbers, is that sometimes there's these soft goodbyes, episode or two before the finale. And if that's something he'd wanted to get on the show for a long time, I'm glad that he did, whether or not he returns, because that was just like, wow, what a great Mikey moment, following up Lord Gaga in the Gaga episode. And just Mikey Day, somebody who is like Kenan, where I don't think he has things left to prove, but plenty in the tank. Bill?
Yeah, we saw how high he rose, and you mentioned, like, last year how high he rose. He was number 1, and to fall back this far is it would be a little concerning. But I think he's like 1A to Kenan's 1, as far as that's just, he reached his peak, and it's not really concerning this deep into his career. He had a lot of great pieces. First Play, again, with Jack Black. I think he played a great role in that. Getting the Traffic Altercation series back on twice. We got to see Mikey being Mikey. And getting back to the update desk, as you said, I think he wasn't on it at all in season 49. So to have him go back and have a couple of characters that he's able to play, that spiderweb thing is just fantastic. That's not something you normally see on SNL these days. So It's a big drop, but for Mikey, I don't think it's concerning.
And John, when I go to you, I want to point out, because I'm looking at his sketches this year, his appearances this year, is that if I listed them out to you, you might not remember Mikey being in them, but he had 2-3 minutes of screen time. And I think that's could be a negative because Mikey can be forgettable, but he's such a glue. He's such a important part to keeping sketches together that it's a huge compliment to him. So a couple of them being some that he wrote, of course, like Washington's Dream sequel. If Mikey Day had left the cast 2 years ago and on his high note, little did we know he'd win the power rankings last year, but we would have never seen Washington's Dream maybe if Streeter didn't, do that without him, or Traffic Altercation with Quinta that happened a couple of years ago, would maybe no sequels to that. But it's like, the dog run sketch with Chalamet, the police station we mentioned with Chappelle, new barista training with Chalamet, the Friendlies sketch with Gaga, Grandma's Birthday with Chalamet, the Mother's Day brunch when he's Dismukes and him are the sons with Goggins, the pirate sketch with Paul Mescal, First Play that Bill mentioned, and the Bald Guy sketch, which I know you love, with Bill Burr. Those are all the 2-minute live sketches he was in that we didn't already mention. So I think Mikey Day being a glue guy, we talk about that with the great Phil Hartmans and people like that. So Mikey Day, does he have anything left to prove to you? I mean, we love Mikey, but I think this could be the end of the road as far as him being in the cast, in my opinion.
I don't think there's anything he could do that would take away my opinion that he's a top 50 cast member of all time. So legacy watch, I think that's secure for me. I don't think he, even if he comes next season back and tanks, I think he's still up there. Like, I'm looking at a historical comparison, 3.73 SBE. I said a 4 is a Hall of Famer. So I think he's I don't think he's a lock for a Hall of Fame, vote for me, but he would be a very good to great, cast member all time. Looking at just looking at someone with a similar episode count and range, like Vanessa Bayer, probably in that, kind of thing, where it's like somebody who doesn't get known for being like the all-time great, but sort of like that next level down. So I don't think that there's anything that could change, even if he had a season like this, which is definitely less than I would have expected. I think the catalyst for his drop in the rankings is that, we all sort of thought coming into season 50 that his roles in sketches would probably end up going to somebody like James Austin Johnson. I think they went to Andrew Dismukes, though. I think Andrew took a lot of the typical roles that Mikey would take in sketches that don't necessarily have the Mikey distinct voice of like, what is happening in this sketch? Like, that's not Andrew. But I think when you put Mikey in his roles, like just as that extra person in a sketch that really stabilizes things, like Andrew was the one who benefited while Mikey took that step down. So I think that's why we're seeing this. I think 3.35, ending up 8th in the power rankings, just a solid season for a veteran. If he wants to stick around 1 more year, 2 more years, and be that solid veteran cast member, that's totally fine. I just don't know if we're going to get to see him the way he was in 48, where he was dominating, or 49 ends up dominating too. Like, I think he had that late career peak, and this is probably where we're going to see him moving on. I'd be very surprised if he sticks around so many more years and ends up going back to the 48, 49 numbers.
Could definitely use his consultation for writing, no matter what happens. And Bill, I want to go to you for a question. You've been working with the SNL Hall of Fame, and a lot of times with sports, we say, can you tell the story of that team without mentioning this name, for Hall of Fame candidates of different sports, different teams. And I think Mikey Day might be a very interesting one to ask that, Bill. Can you tell the story of SNL without mentioning the name Mikey Day?
That's a great question. I think you have to take into account his writing. So if you do that as a performer writer, you cannot tell the story of SNL without him. As a performer, I don't know. He kind of was in the background for so many years, and almost like a Tim Meadows, first 4 or 5 years of his career, where he wasn't really getting the defining roles. And as John said, the resurgence that we saw in 48, 49, So I don't think so as just as a cast member, but yeah, as a writer, absolutely.
And Bill, will he be back in 51?
I think so. I can't imagine him leaving. I know you said a soft goodbye with the spider web. You can even look at, I mean, this is going back a few episodes earlier, but the White POTUS getting to do Junior one more time with Alex would also be like a good goodbye as well. But I don't think that's it for him.
I'm going to say that this might be it for Mikey. But John, has Matt Shat had his final laugh? What do you think?
I would say probably not. I mean, again, I wouldn't mind if Mikey stuck around for a very long time on the writing side. I completely agree with Bill. His duo that he has with him and Streeter. If we ever did a draft of like writer cast member alliances, one of the best ever. So I think that is that's a lock for sure. As far as the cast member is concerned, like I said, like I'm perfectly fine if he wants to stick around and be in this like 7, 8, 9, 10 role for the next couple seasons. I think it really does help the show. When I spoke to him, again, this is, you know, what somebody says to me while I'm visiting the show isn't like canon. But if like when I spoke to him about this and I was like, what are you thinking, like future of the show? And he was like, I'll stay as long as they'll have me. Like, I feel like he's just that type of guy.
I would put him in the category too, John, of Lorne wanting the safety blanket. Like Mikey's on the team. The floor of a show is going to be higher for him being there. So I think that's huge in his category. He is the 8th oldest cast member in history. So he's not, you know, a young buck anymore. He's been there for a while, writing staff to cast and all the way through 50. So Mikey Day leaving the show, I think, is more likely than Kenan, and I think would have a bigger impact than most would think. So let's move on to our number 7, which is the cast member that Mikey Day narrowly beat out at the end of season 49, and that is Heidi Gardner. So this is our most tenured woman in the cast, finishing with a 78.6 and 7th place in the power ranking, 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 40 seconds, 77 appearances. So right up the top 3 in appearances, but 7th in the power ranking. 3.85 sketch per episode, 39 shared segments with Ashley and Sarah. So we saw some good female-driven pre-tapes, like the Forever 31 and the Maybelline that we saw, you know, most of the women. But if there's a, you know, a girl squad, you can bet that Heidi is leading the pack or in the pack. Here's her breakdown: 67.7% live sketch, 3.9% monologue, 4.5% cold open, 14.5% pre-tape, and 9.4% weekend update. Somebody who came in and had one of the best, at least that I've ever measured, rookie seasons. It's really James Austin Johnson and Heidi Gardner who have just killed it from day one. And Heidi, we mentioned her a lot, talking about Ashley, how she came in. Heidi Gardner makes SNL better, no matter if she's small role, big role. So Heidi is somebody that I'd be really sad to leave, but in the similar way we've talked about, has done so much that I wouldn't blame her if other opportunities supersede her need to be on SNL, but I hope she's back. So Bill, I want to go over to you because there's a long-term SNN thing about Heidi Gardner being on your Mount Rushmore of female cast members. We know you love Jan Hooks and others, but we have another season of data, another season that you watched. What's your status on Heidi Gardner on the Mount Rushmore?
A very, very solid season from Heidi. I think this might hurt her Mount Rushmore chances. This is rough. This kind of drop is, you know, I think that I've said it before that she needs 3 or 4 more, you know, number 1, number 2 slots to kind of make it up there, to get up to Cecily and Jan and Gilda. I don't know. This is a little concerning, but when you start to look at the breadth of what she did, She had so many great pieces this year, and she just throws herself literally and figuratively into everything she does on the show. Mile High Burger Challenge, one of my favorite sketches of the entire season. And then she could also do the quiet stuff, the act of kindness with Kenan, that was done around Christmas time. So, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think not having as much on Update this year, I know 3 times is a lot for a lot of people, not for Heidi. And the ones that she did were very, very good. So I don't know. I hate to see her leave more than anybody else. She's, an all-time favorite for me besides a potential Mount Rushmore. So, but like you said, I would understand if she decides it's time to go.
And Heidi is somebody I mentioned with Chloe earlier, so I want to be fair that after the 47 departure of some veteran women, Heidi Gardner's stats just exploded. So looking back, as I have her career stats, screen time per episode each season, 43, 318, 346, 355. So little staying consistent, but 318 for rookie is incredibly good. 346 in 46 COVID year, 321 as the women said goodbye, and then 610 in 48. So Heidi Gardner almost doubled her average screen time when those women like Kate, 80, and Cecily left, and Heidi became the veteran. 544 last year, and then 508 this year. So if you take the stats from 3 seasons, it's 610, dropping to 544, dropping to 508. So it's that kind of bell curve a little bit where you could see a peak, but 508, you see Heidi everywhere. I mean, I'm looking at her appearances. There's too many to name that she had, 2-3 minutes in, John.
Yeah, it's really tough because I don't think that holding her to the standard of a Mount Rushmore cast member is really fair to her. It's not her fault that she came in with like so many great performers that stayed longer than they even wanted to. And like that was the consequence of what we discussed in season 46 and 47, which is had Kate, Cecily, and 80 left after season 45 like they had originally intended to, I think we're looking at a different career arc for Heidi. But it's okay to say that she is a great SNL cast member. It's fine because she is one. Like she has done some really good stuff. You've seen the numbers rise. I think this is another really solid season for her. It doesn't have the highs of season 49 where I think we talked last year about like if there was a DVD cover for 49, like she'd probably be on it. She'd be that cast member that you choose, and 49 was her season. I don't think 50 was her season. I think she took a little bit of a step back. Probably, in the same way that Andrew took a lot of the Mikey roles, I think Sarah took a lot of the Heidi roles. And that is, a consequence of why we get these numbers from her. But 3.85 SPE, that is a great season from Heidi to have her in almost 4 sketches an episode, increased her career average up to a 3.77. I think if I'm talking about Mikey Day being a top 50 cast member all time based on performance alone, you can't help but put Heidi in that same tier. Like I think Heidi, Mikey, they're both like very similar. Their legacy is gonna be great SNL cast members.
Heidi just being one of my favorites because of the acting chops. So I think when you have somebody who can not only disappear into characters, bolster a bad sketch into a good sketch or a good to a great, I want to mention a couple that haven't been mentioned tonight, which is the funeral home sketch with Lady Gaga, which I thought she was phenomenal in, and then the Times Square kiss sketch with Jack Black, which just completely stole the show and made like a sketch that was kind of one note into a great performance that could be on a Heidi highlight reel. So I wanted to just highlight those, John.
Yeah, I mean, I want to highlight the earring sketch that she did with Emil. Like, imagine Heidi did something that I think was really impressive this season. It reminds me a little bit of what 80 did with Bowen, which is that as a veteran cast member, really taking rookies under their wings and encouraging them to succeed on the show. Imagine writing with a rookie a sketch where you are playing as is an 8th year cast member with a 1st year cast member playing opposite them as partners on the show. Like, that stuff doesn't happen, let alone the fact that clearly there is Heidi influence on Ashley Padilla this season as the rookie of the year, them both coming from the same place onto the show. I think it's such a benefit to Ashley to have Heidi around. So like, that could be part of it too. Like, Heidi may just be one of those cast members that really wants the rest of her cast to succeed and doesn't necessarily like want to dominate the show in the way that I felt that she did in season 49. And that may, you know, from an eye test and numbers perspective, limit the ceiling that we get from her in terms of like legacy long term. But like, in the real time, I could see how valuable Heidi is to this cast.
Absolutely. I want to go over to you, Bill, but I think that having, like, just like what John said, just somebody who makes people around her better, you know, that's kind of like the ultimate teamwork compliment you can do, is even when you're not the star, people around you are better because you're there. So I think with Heidi, I'm thinking, looking at the icebreaker, of course, the Kel Squad, but even like the Base Lake sketch, her coming in with the fake prosthetics on and just making a totally ensemble sketch where, like, you know, Jack Black is of course front, you know, and center to camera, but like bringing on wacky characters. That Heidi's physicality is, I think, underrated. So last thought, Bill.
Yeah, her physicality is definitely not is underrated for sure. She's an SNL Hall of Famer. No matter what, Mount Rushmore aside, you know, it is hard to get 4 names on a 50-year-old show with so many great people who have come through the doors. I still think she still has a chance to do that, but either way, she is a boom stamp Hall of Famer to me. And if she doesn't come back, she will still be remembered as one of the greatest of all time.
And your final prediction, Bill? Will Heidi be back in 51?
I think she will.
John?
Heidi will be back in 51, and I hope that she is back. I'll also say, Bill, to me, top 4 women in the history of the show. I think it's like a very interesting discussion. I don't think Heidi's in that conversation yet. Unlike Mikey, I feel Heidi still can achieve things on the show because of the way that she was, I guess, like neutered in her early seasons from being able to produce in the way that she could have. So like, I feel like there's still legacy to build there for Heidi. I will not be like, hey, can you ever get to this Mount Rushmore? Because if she ever does, like I would like to not put that pressure on the situation. But right now, like, I'm very comfortable saying if like this was it for Heidi Gardner, very solidly like top 50 cast member of all time.
Absolutely.
And to that historical, you know, notion, John, Heidi is the 4th longest tenured woman in SNL. It's Cecily, Kate, 80, and then Heidi. So, you know,
yeah, that certainly has to be a factor in considering. I mean,
Maya, Amy, and Vanessa this year.
Yeah, look, I mean, if we're going to, and not everybody does this, but if I'm going to reward Kenan for longevity in terms of putting him in my top 10 of all time, I think someone who's able to stay on the show for this long and still do a great job in a season, I have to also give those points to Heidi.
And my prediction, I think if Heidi goes to Lauren and says, I think that was my last season, I've had a great time, I think Lauren should say, just do one more. And I think he would. So let's move on to a cast member who's paired with Heidi a lot, who I had a similar, you know, trajectory because of when she came in the cast, and that's Nwodim, coming in at 6th place with a 79.1. So Ego had on paper a great season on the stats we see here, but for the first time, I think ever, we've seen Ego be Ego in the form of Miss Eggy. So a update piece that came in by surprise with, you know, going to the crowd, going to Colin and Michael, and, you know that men ain't shit, you know, and getting, you know, that joking about the FCC fine is perfect timing, I think, for Ego. No matter what she does next, is to kind of solidify. We already knew that she was a great sketch performer, but to have a voice and a character that seemed completely her own was just like chef's kiss, icing on the cake. I've been, just preaching the gospel of Ego Nwodim since SNL Stats began, and now here we are. She's 6th in the power rankings. Here are the stats. 1 hour, 47 minutes, 53 seconds of screen time, 68 appearances. It's a 3.4 average. 4 live from New York's, 41 segments share with Sarah Sherman. And here is the breakdown. 64.9% in live sketch. Ego, Dismukes, Mikey, Kenan, people we see, live on camera rather than pre-tapes more often. 8.4% in pre-tapes and a 13.3% on a weekend update. We saw other ones too. There was that character early on who was going through her purse and found her ballot and all these things. And, that classic Ego, we've seen that before. John's mentioned a lot. It's a great point that Ego does a character once. It's, doesn't go back to the well a lot. So that's why the Miss Eggy thing I wanted to lead off with. A little bit in cold opens and a little bit in monologues, but the live sketch for me is the biggest thing. So John, Ego Nwodim, someone who came in the year after Heidi as a solo hire, got to, have to survive the Kate 80 Cecily run, and now has broken through and is 6th in the power ranking. It's the highest she's ever finished.
Yeah, that's exciting news. I think she's had a career year. I feel like it's never enough for me because I'm so enamored with Ego. And I think that anytime she's on screen, she just gives me so much. So I'm always like, okay, when is she going to become the star of the show? And it always just feels like she's like right outside that like term, like star of the show. But whenever she does hit, she hits hard. And there's been so many moments this year. I'm so happy that she did have the Miss Eggy because I think that'll sort of break her out of the Lisa from Temecula is her legacy conversation, like that she's also had this thing what she did with Miss Eggy. It's just interesting. Like I think she's inching up. I think the addition of Carl Tart on the writing team, maybe the cast next year, I mean, that's something interesting to watch, like is really huge for her as a performer on this show. I think that there is definitely a shot that she is leading the power ranking next season. I say that every year, but I feel more confident this year than any based on what we just saw, that as a veteran performer on this show, she could have another career year next year that's even better than this one.
And Bill, this is, talk about Ego stats. John mentioned, took the words out of my mouth. It's never enough. I think Ego leading a sketch, like a live sketch, not a cold open, not a weekend update, it ends up being some of my favorites. Look back to the Shane Gillis, the Jamaican church sketch, where we talked about how Shane Gillis brought this kind of bro flavor to an episode, and he certainly did, and he did it again this season. But, lost in the mix, people want to hate on those episodes, is like a breakout, amazing performance from Ego Nwodim. And so I love when she gets to bring that to an episode like that. So I just love to hear your thoughts, because this is somebody who I think kind of just, laid in the wings a little bit, and is now, I would say emphatically, as an SNL podcaster, as a stat guy, is a star no matter what happens next.
She's a star, and she's poised for superstardom. Probably outside of Kenan, the most versatile cast member. She can play anything. She can be the girlfriend in Hey Soul Sisters. She can be the Jewish friend in the little red glasses. The blind date with Chris Rock, where she's just kind of playing the silent type. And then all the weekend update appearances. She has such great characters. She competes with Heidi as far as having the longest names in weekend update history. The woman who did this and did that. So I love seeing Ego on my screen. I've been promoting Mr. Throwback, the show that she did on Peacock with Adam Pally. Just amazing. Getting to see her act in something else as well. I hope that doesn't mean that she'll leave the show, because I think she's still got a lot to contribute. And I agree with John. She could lead this thing next year.
John, I want to hear some comps on the SPE in a moment, but this is another cast member who had some like really hidden gems. So I want to highlight those. Uber Game Show with Michael Keaton. When I was writing the poem pre-show and thought about the Keaton episode, that was the first one I thought of, just because it was kind of like a host playing a B-roll. Ego was the Uber driver leading the game show. We had the check-to-check business with John Hamm, which was really just her and the host, the whole time. A couple guests popped in. Blind Date with Chris Rock. And one of my favorite, maybe top 3, maybe top 1, could be my favorite sketch of the season, was the evacuation with Dave Chappelle. So was there another Ego moment that you could think of? And, I'd love to hear her comps overall now that she's been on the cast since season 44.
I think those moments are so good. The evacuation alert makes sense. I remember the conversation we were having after the Hey Soul Sister Dismukes piece, where we were talking about how it's interesting, her being the only Black woman on the show, how that does affect her, what we would end up seeing from her in season 50 with them, not having Punky anymore. And like, would they bring in one in the future? And I think that's something to watch out for between 50 and 51, is if they hired another Black woman for the show. Just to be able to not necessarily say like, oh, Ego has to play this specific role because there's nobody else in the cast to play that person. I don't know that was a huge storyline for the season, but I think it's just still something interesting to think about. But I still think she had a fantastic year. And it's interesting to talk about her and Heidi, right? Because with Heidi, the conversation from Legacy was definitely impacted in those first 4 years of her career by having all of those other cast members that stayed for such a long time. With Ego, she has one less year of that, where her season 44 and 45 as a featured player were probably about what you would expect from her. And it's really only, 46, 47 that maybe get that impact. Whereas like Heidi had to deal with that extra year of that. So I think those are, less of a factor, but it's still something to think about when it comes to the legacy of Ego. And I look at her historical comparisons. So both her and Rachel Dratch have appeared in 137 episodes. Ego has a 3.26 and Rachel has a 3.27. So that's interesting there. Very similar stat line for the career. Just 9 more sketches appeared in from Rachel versus Ego in the same amount of episodes. The next interesting one on this list, Aidy Bryant, 3.3, 197 episodes and 692 sketches for her career. It's interesting to think about. And by the way, those Dratch numbers may have included some sketches from after. The SPE only counts as her cast time. But still, those two comps I think are really interesting there, where you're talking about some women who are probably like top 40 of all time, but not necessarily like top 20. And I think that Ego had a year this year that could be a top 20 of all time year. Does she pick it up even further next year?
I like the 80 comp, honestly. I could see whether Heidi decides or not, but I could see Sarah Sherman, Ego Nwodim having a kind of Kate 80 relationship where one is more wacky, could be in more cold opens and do the kind of Sarah front-facing pieces where that Kate did, and Ego could be more of the versatility player like Aidy Bryant. And 80's always been my favorite, and Ego's, has been my favorite for a long time. So I like that. That comparison makes a lot of sense to me. Ego back next season? I say, I hope so. Yes. John?
I don't know how you continue the show without Ego. I think that would be like a very weird thing.
And I do think that's on my prediction list too, is that a Black female cast member will be hired for 51. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Let's hope so.
Going into number 5, who just beat Ego. So the top 5, coveted spot to be in the power rankings is James Austin Johnson, 79.4. So you see a lot of purple on this chart. That's the cold opens, 54.8%. So playing the candidate for president, and then the president-elect, and then the incumbent president has its benefits if you are the impressionist who plays that president. And that's James playing Trump. So 54.8% there, dropping off to a 32.5% in live sketch. So, of course, it's going to outweigh the other categories in SNL. Weekend update, we saw him do a little bit of voices for Colin Jost moments there. His rants, kind of like Seth Meyers really, but Colin Jost had his, so we saw a little bit of that. But would have liked to see something other than the Gallagher brothers from Oasis, which I loved. But we did see James do those micro impressions, and saw him do Millie and Shirty with Devon. So things like that, I think that James can excel on Update. 8.4% pre-tape, 1.3% monologue, and I was a 3.0% on Update. 76 segments. That was 1 hour, 44 minutes, and 12 seconds. He said live from New York more than anyone, of course, 12 times. He's getting up there in the 40s, right, John? He's like, he has a chance to hold the record someday with the most live from New York. So if he stays a few more years, especially political landscape, what it being right now. 43 shared segments with Dismukes. So Jajmukes Nation, I'm sure you love that number. 43 times we saw them in the same segment in some capacity. So James Austin Johnson said he's holding steady because there's been comps to a Beck Bennett or a Mikey Day, but there's also been comps to a Phil Hartman or a Dan Aykroyd. So he's somebody who can do a lot, play elder roles, and a master impressionist. So Bill, over to you. James Austin Johnson coming in with Sarah and Aristotle, and now we see him and Sarah really being major parts of the future, I think.
Yeah, a great season by Zhazh, and maybe not what we would hope to see in the second half politically. It would have been nice to see that he didn't have to play Trump after the election, but alas, here we are. I think my only concern going into 50 was that he would lose some of those other roles, those father roles, those boyfriend roles that we were getting to see him do at late 48 and all of 49. And I think that happened just a little bit. I think that there were many episodes where he just he did the cold open, and we didn't see very much of him after that. So if he's going to get in a Dan Aykroyd or Phil Hartman position, he's going to have more roles like that going forward, even if he's doing all these Trump cold opens. I still like his Trump. If I've got to see this guy for the next 4 years, Trump, that is, Zhazh is the guy to do it. And I think White POTUS is one of the best pieces. We got to see him do a different version of the Trump impression that he's been doing all this time, the rat-a-tat-tat that we see so often. Seeing him play, the role that's in season 3 of White Lotus, the father, the rich father who's medicating himself. I think Zhazh played that very, very well. So my hopes are high. We're obviously not going to see less of him, but I hope we see more of him in other roles.
And John, you see the screen time by episode, and you see those long purple bars that represent cold open time, where, let's be honest, most of the time it is just Trump really on screen the whole time. They don't really cut to a lot of other characters when he's on screen. And so also, by the way, did you see Louis Zakarian's video on getting James from Trump to ScarJo's monologue, which is fantastic. And I want to bring that up because of my question to you, John, is it does prove to everybody out there that James can be ready quickly for not only the monologue, but just like the first sketch after the commercial. So there's nothing about him playing Trump and cold opens that's preventing him from being a sketch leader elsewhere in the show, let alone that early. So can you think of some James sketches, or like what should his future be without saying the word Trump?
Well, no, I just, to go back to that, I'll say that if they were doing a thing where they had him as Trump later in the show than the cold open, then that would impact his screen time, because the time to get him ready takes a lot longer than it is to take him out of the makeup.
That would be super rare, though.
It's rare in this era. Obviously, like in, Chevy playing Ford or Carvey playing H.W. Bush, they had them in different times of the show. So it's like, it's a little bit different. You wouldn't necessarily have that not in the cold open right now because the show is less political. But even Fred as Obama didn't necessarily always do it in the cold open. I think what's interesting here is like you mentioned Dan Aykroyd and Phil Hartman, and I think we were talking about that a lot in season 49 based on seeing like he just did Snake Eyes, he did the ABBA sketch where he was like introducing that, and I definitely think he's like not in that lane. I think he's more in the ceiling of Dana Carvey, floor of Daryl Hammond lane. It's, you know, I go back to the original conversation I had with him I had about him at the beginning of his career, where I was like, he's gonna be one of these two things, and I think he's like solidly in the middle of them right now. Where like if I look at a historical comp, Dana's career SPE was 3.89, which I think is surprisingly low for his impact on the history of the show, but 3.89 for Dana, and Daryl's is 3.16. James is like solidly in the middle for his career at 3.41. So I think that is interesting for me that he sort of like falls there. I think that one of the big benefits of getting voiceover work, which is really, you know, an aspect of the show that you don't always see with the naked eye, is that does definitely help his numbers here. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen moving forward. He has the chance that if he wants to extend his career and be here a very long time, that he could do things like get the Live from New York record. He could continue to boost that SPE. He can do a ton of other impressions, which I think is something that sorely was missing from him this season. Like, he's such a good impressionist. He doesn't only have to do like Bob Dylan and Trump. Like, there's other things that I think we would have wanted to see from him. But I just wonder if the show is like giving him the leash to do that. It's a very, very interesting, almost a bit of a unicorn case in the history of the show, someone like James Austin Johnson.
Well, we can't ignore that he was brought into the cast to succeed Alec Baldwin, no matter what happened with Trump politically. So that's a huge reason he's here and a huge reason why he'll stay. Speaking of the Live from New York record, he's at 6th right now. You know, Kate and Daryl at 75, him at 38. So long way to go, but the way it's tracking, it's definitely possible, which definitely a record that's coveted by us, but it's a pretty big deal.
I also think they haven't done him any favors, like, to be honest, because like they took away the Biden impression from him. They seemed like they were trying to take away the Trump impression from him. And like, let's say Shane Gillis said, yes, I'll play Trump this season. Like, what does James Austin Johnson's season look like right now? Like, it's very bizarre. Now, we're living in the world where Shane Gillis did not say yes to that offer. James got to continue the impression and Trump got elected. So the stock and ceiling is super high. I just, like, I'm always wondering, I'm like, why don't they just want to like take this guy who is so talented and just like let him explode all over the show?
It comes to, Bill, I think a problem that SNL has had, especially recent memory, of not showcasing impressions. I don't think impressions are more or less popular than they've ever been. You know, you see Dana Carvey still working his impressions to this day and them getting laughs. And he's been off the cast for a long time and doesn't do as much stand-up. But to John's point, before I move on, 57 minutes, 9 seconds in cold opens. He was in 17 of them out of 20. So that's, you know, almost all of them. And that's almost 40% of the screen time. I want to at least look at, Bill, the moments that weren't Trump. So that's Pop's Big Regret, that sketch with Dismukes and Marcello that he had 2 minutes, 50 seconds of. So I'm going down the list. It's all cold opens, and then it's the Millennium Musical, the Port Authority Milk musical, the Noel and Liam Gallagher update, and then this is after that. So Pop's Big Regret, Bob Dylan on the Complete Unknown red carpet. So we got one impression from James that wasn't Trump this year, and I love that impression. And then it's like a big drop off. I think, like, you know, it's Grandma's Birthday, Family Feud, which is Trump again, Bald Guys. He had a little singing duet with Bowen, the Office Party, Chris Rock pre-tape, Pirates sketch. And then where I want to land here is he is somebody who's doing something that I think no one is doing, Bill, which is he has like this old timey quality. So it's the Quinta Brunson, Jerry, Jack Rabbit, Tulane. He can like do, you know, baseball announcer and old commentator and stuff that no one else would fit that mold. So I don't know what I'm asking you, Bill, other than should SNL do more kind of like throwback sketches to showcase James, or is there other areas?
Yeah, he's the Eddie Spamoza of our time. Don't forget about the Hotel Detective with Ariana. That was, the fast talking black and white. They absolutely should do that.
Minute 38 there.
Look to the second golden era. That's where they made their bread and butter, man. Like that was doing old timey stuff. And he's the perfect person for that. You're absolutely right. He did one other impression this year. Don't forget, he did Jay-Z in Jury Duty. So luckily not in makeup of any sort. We don't want to go back to that part of the history of the show for sure.
Well, he was a radio host, right? Radio host who did prank calls.
Correct. Yeah.
He wasn't Jay-Z downstairs like he was on Update.
That's right. Yes. But yeah, I mean, the ceiling is unlimited for this guy. And I think, yeah, there has to be a balance. There has to be, a way to get him back into that season 49 mode where we were seeing him, the way he was playing off Kristen Wiig in 49 gave us all high hopes for his entire breadth of his time on SNL. So hopefully we see more of that. I don't necessarily want to see the Trump cold opens go away because I think he's so good at it, but mixing it up a little bit more would probably be good. And maybe that gives him the opportunity to go do other stuff in the episode.
And John, you mentioned the voice work, and I'm glad you did, because that was a Beck Bennett and Cecily Strong, like kind of those two male and female voice work people. So I think James has a long career ahead of him, no matter how old he is. Look at Daryl Hammond, he's literally the announcer at SNL now. James could do that one day. You said his floor might be Daryl Hammond, which I think is high praise considering how much Daryl did on the show. Is just kind of what I asked Bill. Like, is there room that we haven't explored with James, or we kind of know what he's about? Because I like the versatility that he can bring. So I before we move on, I just think that I want to ask you that first too.
Yeah, I said this on the show with you and Andrew Dick last week. Like, I get the feeling, and this is my biggest problem, is that like sometimes they just want to give everybody something. Like they want, if somebody had a bad show last week, they want to make sure they had a good show this week. And like, that's not in the nature of the show. I know the producers are the ones that like, this is the show that they want to make. But like, for me, Saturday Night Live has always been that like the best stuff like needs to get on the show. The best performers need to get time on the show. Like that's the whole thing. So yeah, like I'm not there on a week-to-week basis to see like what other things James is writing or involved in that aren't Trump things. But I just think you have somebody who's so talented, and like 5 in the power rankings is not bad at all. It's just that like we are talking about a guy with the talent to be like a top 3 every single year. And he's probably held back in a way that I don't get.
I see Mark in the chat say they should come up with new two-handers. And I think that's the kind of good, maybe say for another show, but a macro about current SNL. We talk about there's recurring concepts, but not recurring characters. But they don't do, I think, enough teams. Dismukes being one that's, heralded, but doing this kind of like when they did the Jingle Guys and stuff, or the Toyota Kings that they did a couple of years ago, is that there's room for that. That's not an impression. It's not an old-timey character. It's just Andrew and James, or Andrew and Devon, or Devon and James coming up with something that's silly that week that could be a sketch that doesn't have to be about Heidi, Ego, Kenan, Chloe, any of those vets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely with you. It's just one of those things that I just don't know why they don't do it more.
And that brings us to his top scene partner at number 4 at an 82.1. So we've gone out of the 70s and into the 80s. It's Andrew Dismukes, who had one of the most fascinating trajectories getting to where he was, coming in as a writer super young, just a very young voice in the writer's room. You wouldn't think that Dismukes, when you see him outside the show has a big personality who can put sketch material forward and vouch for it and fight at the table and get it to Lauren and get it to the host. But here we are. He's number 4 in the power rankings. His stats are 1 hour, 51 minutes, 44 seconds. His appearance is 79, which gets him first in the cast, joining the list of Amy Poehler's and Phil Hartman's and all those greats. Look up our social media to see the chart that Andrew Dismukes has joined, which includes the Beck Bennett's and Kate McKinnon's and Taran Killam and all these people that are just used everywhere. And that's what Andrew was this year. I call it the Dismukes stat for a reason. 72.1% live sketch. He did get 2 pretty great update appearances. One was the him as himself with his puppet dad and the bald man. So he had 2 of those, which we don't think of Dismukes as a solo update guy, but he got 2 of those, and still his live sketch material is over 72%. Weekend update was 6.9, pre-tape 6.2, tiny bit of monologue, less than 1%, and 14% in cold opens. 3.95%, SPE, the average per episode, 4 live from New York's. 4th place. I've talked about it enough, John, this whole season, so I'm going to go to you and not give much else on Dismukes because I've said it all.
I mean, I can't understate how good of a season analytically Andrew Dismukes had. Like, it was just
A+.
Unbelievable. This is a guy who has a career 3.03 SPE. So that's after this. That's including the season. So he was under a 3 coming into the season. He put up a 3.95 this season. So he increased his SPE like over one sketch over his career average, which means like every episode they were putting him in one extra thing. And that one extra thing was not an Andrew Dismukes vehicle. It was him appearing in somebody else's sketch. So the strategy with Andrew this year was clearly very different and a conscious decision by the show to change the way they were going to use Andrew in season 50. I will say, personally, Andrew Dismukes is my favorite cast member on the show. I think he's hilarious, and anything I see written in his voice, I favor to because I really enjoy his work. And this season, we got less of that. But it is also really cool to see him finally getting his due and succeeding on the show. So as much as I want to say, oh, I wish we had more sketches that had that weird Andrew Dismukes flavor to them, I'm a little okay with them taking a step back on it if we're going to be getting this much Andrew. So for me, it's probably a win. It'll just be interesting to see if like maybe they find a little bit more of a healthy balance in season 51, but he's certainly building a legacy for himself at the show.
So Bill, 10 episodes this year. John mentioned earlier, Hall of Fame number might be a 4 or more, right, John, of SPE?
Yeah, I mean, I say 4 for a career is definitely Hall of Fame.
So 10 episodes, which is half the season, he had 4 or more, including a 7 with Jack Black, 6 with John Hamm and Charlie XCX, 5 appearances with Mikey Madison, Chalamet, Bill Burr, and Ariana Grande. So those are episodes where he was, think about the night itself is usually 11, 12, or 13 segments. He's not going to appear in the music. He's not going to appear in Update every week. Not going to appear in Cold Opens every week, which leaves the meat of the show, sketches and pre-tapes. Andrew's appearing in them more often than not. So when I did meet Dismukes last season, I talked about the live material and how much I appreciated that he was putting forward that. He had that sketch of the detective like taking the sunglasses off, like CSI Miami with the pizza sketch he did with the Rami Youssef episode. And I think that's what his goal is. And he's achieving that goal, Bill, which is to get fully fleshed out live sketches on. So whether they bomb or they're the best of the year, like a Beep Beep with Adam Driver, maybe the Pops last, when he's dying on the floor, it's not as memorable as that, but he's putting on these sketches that are like classic SNL. And I think, Bill, you're a classic SNL guy who watches old middle, new, recent, all of the show's history. And is Dismukes somebody who could have existed like kind of in any era because he has that voice?
Absolutely. He's a unique voice, but somebody who SNL desperately needs somebody like this on the show on a regular basis. And I can't believe we're talking about him 3 hours into the show. He's the 17th most famous cast member, according to his dad. So, love Dismukes. Doing this for 5 years on the podcast and all the hand wringing we did in 46, 47, 48. Where's Dismukes? When's he going to break out? He was the MVP last year and the screen time leader this year, and into the top 3 or top 4, excuse me. It's
appearance
amazing.
Appearance leader.
Sorry. It's really gratifying to see his growth on the show, getting to see what he's been able to do. And he did have plenty of Dismukes moments. I think the game show host in the Indiana Jones sketch with Jack Black was
great.
Very on point, very hater-esque, if I may say so. I know we were talking about Longfellow earlier about being hater-esque. That game show reminded me of something Hater would have done at that time. And then obviously already mentioned Hey Soul Sister, the bad dad jokes with the Weekend Update were just so great. Probably my favorite Weekend Update piece of the entire year. All praise to the great Dismukes.
John, I want to read this out one more time. I did a full Dismukes career stat segment earlier this season when I saw it trending that Dismukes could be top 5 for sure to stay in the power rankings. But I just love how clear the numbers are. A lot of times the numbers can get lost because we're talking about so many of them. But coming in 46 with Lauren and Punky, his average screen time was 147. Next year, 246. Following year, 334. Season 49, 416. This season, 535. So I love just seeing the minutes jump each season. That it's hard to get to a 6, honestly, let alone a 7. Like that's almost unheard of to get to unless you're an update anchor. But I love to see that growth because I feel like you can see it with the eye test too. Not that we're seeing him more, but he's just like super comfortable. Like I think he just knows what he brings, and people probably love working with him because the energy in the sketches is gonna be funny. Like the trust in him is good.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that in season 49, when we did this, and I didn't listen back to our show that we did last year, but I feel like I said that part of the reason, or maybe it was 48 even before, the great 49, that I said like part of the reason that he hasn't like fallen completely into the Will Forte, like area of things or category is just that he's like a really normal looking guy who can do really weird things. Whereas like some of the other weird performers in the show just like clearly fall in the weird lane. Where now I think that maybe to his benefit, or the show like found a way to pivot it to his benefit, where he could play like ancillary roles in sketches like dads or husbands or whatever because he's normal looking, but he can also bring weird to those performances, or angry, funny, angry, whatever it is, to those performances because of his aesthetic and his comedy voice. So like, we always try and archetype people, but I wonder in this case if like Andrew Dismukes is building his own archetype of a weird performer that also fits well in utility roles.
I think he's done it. I think people, at least people like us who follow the show, can spot it out, point to the screen and say that's a Dismukes sketch or a Dismukes character. So he had that brilliant lawyer sketch. It was his longest appearance of his career in a live sketch, 4 minutes 17, where Paul Mescal was the host, but he was like the defendant. He was kind of like a passenger in the sketch where Dismukes dictated every beat of it. The guys with the Devo hats shuffling around. Shout out to Carl Tart. But I want to shout this out too. We had 100 live sketches this season. So it's a very even number that we got. And Dismukes appeared in 54 of them. So
wow,
easy percentage, 54%. So more than half of the live sketch material, not including cold open, monologue, and update. Dismukes appeared in 54 out of 100 sketches for 1 hour, 20 minutes, 35 seconds, which just that alone is bigger than the total of a lot of cast members. So Andrew Dismukes is one of the best SNL stat stories I think we'll ever see. So let's move on to our top 3.
It's exciting. And by the way, that's a great stat. If we ever found out the list of people who appeared in more than half of live sketches in a season, that'd be a great thing to put together.
Agreed. So this is somebody who I like to think in my mind about the same type of rise, because now we're here, great, love the font and the bronze color for Sarah Sherman, who's third in the power rankings, 84.2. So I'll give some comps. I want to see John's comps on the SPE as well. Sarah's screen time broke the coveted 2 hours. So when people think about screen time, 20 episodes, they're all 90 minutes, right? It's a lot of commercials. You get the montage, you get the good nights. It's a lot that factor into it. So for Sarah Sherman to be one of 3 cast members to reach 2 hours is huge, especially in this point in her career. That's 2 hours, 2 minutes, 2 seconds, 222. Look at that. 75 segments, 3.75 SPE, top co-star Dismukes 43, right there. A lot of live material, but Sarah has a really good looking pie chart, a lot of colors on it. So live sketch being the biggest, 55.1, but also weekend update, 17.5. So we think about Jane Wickline and Marcello being on update a lot. Sarah just brought a lot of different things there. So we see that on the pie chart. 14.5% in the cold open. We saw Matt Gaetz a couple times, including on Church Chat. 3.6% in the monologue. I remember the Michael Keaton where they cut to Sarah in the crowd to do the Beetlejuice voice. So I think Sarah Sherman is finding a way to maintain originality, make a name for herself, as in the name Sarah Sherman and knowing her face. She's on SNL. And also breaking out in a huge way, like a Chloe or an Ego or a Vanessa Bayer or an Amy Poehler, to do just like the average sketch. So that's been a big theme on By the Numbers this year. Don't have to repeat it. So I'm going to go to Bill. Sarah Sherman, third place, coming into season 47. Here she is, top 3 cast member.
Yeah, kudos to Sarah. My only fear is that we've lost Squirm, because I don't think we're getting the really absurdist stuff that we were getting the first couple of years. But if the trade-off is that we're getting to see a more well-rounded performer, John, I know one of your favorite people is Amy Poehler. This feels almost like an Amy Poehler trajectory. Somebody who came into the show as well, who had a very unique voice. Were they going to work in her weirdness and things like that? And eventually she turns into this all-around performer and weekend update anchor. I know Sarah's name comes up with that as well. So it's been a really fun season to watch. Her weekend update appearances kill me every time. Playing Colin's accountant and coming on the Victoria's Secret one in the Keaton episode where she's asking where all the Midwest fours are at. And she's so great and has transitioned into those wives and mother roles like we saw in the Goggins episode. So I love Sarah, and I'm happy to see that she's moved up this far.
And John, I think you were on By the Numbers last year, probably like Christmas episode, getting towards the middle point of season 49. And Sarah wasn't really having a good season. She had a great Bargatze episode, but her power ranking was 51.8. Look at her screen time average through the first 10 was, 331, which isn't bad. But now look at what it is. It's 6 minutes 6. So that's almost double that number I just put out there. So is Sarah Sherman a surprise to you that she has become like everywhere in the show? Because early on, talking about Jewish Elvis and the Chucky doll and the giant googly eyes, Brendan Gleeson and the Michael B. Jordan roller coaster, like Bill alluded to, the squirm was not for everybody, but now I think Sarah is for everybody.
Well, again, analytically, she had a great season. Increased her SP 3.75 for the year. She has a career 3.08. Like, just clearly, again, production decision to change what they did with Sarah. I think what production did with Sarah and Andrew this season is one of the major storylines of the season. The difference for me a little bit is that I think that Sarah's voice was more unique to the history of the show. Like, she was bringing in something that we had never seen before. And to lose that, I think, is tougher than with Andrew, because we sort of have seen, what Andrew was bringing a bit compared to some other former cast members. I think the Amy Poehler comparison is fascinating, Bill, because I agree. I think they're doing the same thing with Sarah that they did with Amy, who came in like dynamo, and they sort of like stabilized her and made her, elevate a bunch of other people's sketches. And I think Sarah does that. What I think the difference is, why Amy sort of really works for me and why I value her so much during the bad times at the beginning of her career with the show, and then as the show got great again, is that the performers around Amy were able to fill the void that Amy left behind. So you had people like Rachel and Maya and Kristen who were able to step in to the weird, wacky, energetic roles that Amy sort of gave up to be that stability. And I don't know that this cast has somebody to step into the Sarah Squirm roles that Sarah's leaving behind. So, like, it's good for the show to have someone as strong of a performer as Sarah doing so well and all over the show. I just wonder if, like, when we're thinking about what this show is missing in terms of new hires, maybe and maybe this is what they were hoping Jane would bring in her own way, but I don't think that she did that. Is like, maybe they need another woman on the show who brings like a very distinct voice to replace what we're losing with Sarah by getting her all over the show.
Bill, response?
Bill, we got you. We may have lost Bill Kenney. Mike, do you hear me?
Yeah, I did hear you. I think that would be a good thing, mentioning someone to pair with Ego or someone to pair with Longfellow on Update, possibly. With Sarah Sherman, the key here is keeping Dan Bulla on staff, because the midnight matinees featured Sarah Sherman in some way, whether she's the head in the fridge, whether Beppo the chimp is making out with her when he comes home to Earth, or whether she's the boss's wife with Walton Goggins for the bathroom sketch we got in the midnight matinees. So I think that gives her some opportunity to play into the squirm, and we don't want to lose that. So I think if Dan Bulla, works full time for Sandler next year, or it takes a musical role somewhere else, that would devastate Sarah Sherman's trajectory to an SNL star. Because what John said earlier is that when she came in, you could kind of say, like, you're changing SNL, and now she is just being SNL. So I think that is the key. But if someone comes in that can complement that, might not have been a Jane or an Ashley or an Emil, but something to look forward to. And we'll definitely be back next year. We'll be shocked if not. So shall we move on?
Well, let's just let me just say two things, or one thing quickly, and then I'll just see if we get Bill in for some final thoughts on Sarah. Historical comp, her career, it was like in the Julia Sweeney type of range, like, right? Like, she was just somebody who like came in, did something, like had some unique characters, all of that. This year with like the 3.75 SPE that she put up, like, we're talking more in like the Maya Rudolph range. Like, that's how good of a season that she was having here. So I think that like this is really good stuff from Sarah. Bill, do we have you back for some final thoughts on Sarah Sherman?
Can you hear me now?
We got you. Yeah. Good.
Yes. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. And one of the things that I really loved seeing from Sarah, almost glimpses of Squirm, when Jack Black was in Walton Goggins, some of the quirkier hosts that we got this year, she did kind of show that. The Boss's Bathroom, I mean, she's not playing at full tilt as she was in earlier years, but we did get some of that. So hopefully she continues to expand, but doesn't lose the entire thing with Squirm. But yeah, happy to see everything that she's been able to do.
Fair enough. So that's Sarah at number 3. So it should be noted that she is the top woman of the cast at 84.2. And just to kind of look back to, the yesteryear of SNL and look at like Kate McKinnon, Kate was a 105 in season 46. In season 45, Kate was a 102. In 44, she was a 115. So there have been times in very recent memory that a woman of the cast has completely dominated. So a lot of that has to do with cold opens, and that Sarah Sherman isn't playing like a Hillary Clinton or a Jeff Sessions or Rudy Giuliani like Kate did, which eats up a lot of time. But I think that from where she is, Sarah Sherman had a on paper and eye test like incredible year. So on to number 2, which is going to be someone who was neck and neck with Sarah a couple weeks ago, ahead of who's going to be number 1, but was leading the power rankings for, I think, 17 or 18 weeks this season. I think Sarah overtook Bowen 1 or 2 weeks, and then the final week, the number 1 became number 1. But that's Bowen Yang, who I would say with full confidence, full energy, was the star of SNL 50. Bowen Yang, 85.7 power ranking, makes him number 2, 2 hours and 39 seconds of screen time. So a little bit below Sarah, who was in 2 hour 2, a little bit ahead of Bowen. 76 segments, which is a 3.8 average. 40 shared segments with Sarah, who was at number 3, and also has a good pie chart. 66.3% in live sketch, only an 8.3% in cold open. So I think that you look at Bowen's stats and say, oh, well, he got the JD Vance role, right? So he got ahead because of the cameos, took over the Maya, the Gaffigan, the Sandberg, those, and Carvey, but not a ton of cold open in the pie chart. 14.2% in weekend update. That was the, playing the drone. Chen Biao came back. We saw a couple, Bowen Yang, he did his piece with Sarah, the Applebee's couple, right? 3.7% in monologue, 7.4% in pre-tape. His numbers of screen time by episode, only 1 episode was, or 2 episodes were under 3 minutes, 1 under 2. So Bowen Yang never really had a bad week in all of 50. 6 minutes and 2 seconds per episode average, and per appearance, 135. Something we haven't mentioned a lot, but it just means that more often than not, Bowen doesn't do voiceovers, almost never. And when he's in sketches, he just doesn't really have small parts, Dr. Please maybe once in a while, couple little roles, Bill. But, Bowen Yang, when he's in a sketch, more often than not is an A role and not a B role. So Bill, I'll go to you for Bowen, because I think I thought all year was going to be the power ranking champion, and he just got beat out in 2 weeks of the show.
By Michael Che, right? Is that who's coming up? No spoilers. Yeah, he's been the star for a couple of years, and he's just expanded on that. And it's really interesting to see what he's been able to do. The JD Vance going to a cast member was huge. We didn't, with all of the people that they brought in to do other roles for the political season, keeping that in-house was very, very good to see. And yeah, I mean, great on Weekend Update. I love him and Sarah together on Update. And charades with Mom in the Ariana episode, one of the better sketches of the season, playing a prominent role in that. And Deathly Diner was another one that I really enjoyed. So overall,
Bill, you like that sketch, the Deathly Diner?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
You didn't?
Proceed.
It might be your last.
It might be your last.
I did enjoy that. Sorry. I mean, maybe it wasn't the best sketch ever, but Bowen is just, you can see it from these numbers. The numbers don't lie. So consistent across the board. Has so many different ways that he can contribute to the show. So happy to see him. Number 2.
The other updates were Nwodim in the premiere and Joe Exotic, which was in episode 7 of this season. So, he kind of had a good, solid, update, break, kind of didn't see it. And then eventually at the end of the year, we saw 2 in a row in episode 17, 18. But John, I wanted to point to Wonderful Tonight, this sketch that was Lady Gaga, who I think is mine and yours favorite host of the year. And Bowen had a fantastic night in that episode with Lady Gaga. And I want to point to that sketch because we saw the Cecily musical moments a lot. They almost become a little tiresome. And Bowen could play into those too. But this was a moment where the jokes were flying, the chemistry was perfect, and the sketch never dropped off, which in those type of sketches, I feel like they normally do. And I think Bowen Yang should be given a lot of credit that he can do those two-handers with a host, and it's like they've worked together for years.
Yeah, that sketch lives rent-free in my head. Like, I think about it a lot, and I completely agree with you. I think Bowen had a really good season this year, like, if not a great season this year, to the point where we were here halfway through and saying that he is the star of season 50. I think in the second half, he took a little bit of a step back and sort of joined the rest of the cast at their level, and it became more ensemble. I really wanted him to sort of like take that baton and just be like the leader of the pack, because I think it would have been fun in its 50th season to have someone that I could say is the true star of Saturday Night Live. I don't know that I would say that at this point. I will say that he is among the stars and probably the biggest star today. But, again, like, if you're Bowen, like, I don't know how you can complain about this season. You got still a lot of stuff on in your voice. You've been all over the show. You got to do a political impression. You got to do update. His pie chart looks good. Like, these are great stats all around for Bowen Yang. I think he was a top candidate for potential to leave the show because he's become so well known and popular outside of the show. So like, if you're doing great outside of SNL, you're doing great on SNL. It's sort of like that perfect cocktail of like going out on top. But if he does choose to stay on the show and wants to stay there for many years forward, if he continues to produce seasons like this, he could become an all-time great. I always like to say with Bowen that I think your mileage may vary on like how you feel about his sketches that he gets on the show. But as far as like I'm concerned, I think there's a lot of great stuff that he does on SNL. His numbers look really good. And if he was to repeat this for 2, 3, 4 more years, like we are talking about really like him being among the all-time greats.
Just to point out what John mentioned, the drop off at the end. So through episode 1 through 15, that's the Gene Smart premiere through Mikey Madison. Bowen Yang was in the lead. He had an 87.7 average. After that, it dropped 8 points, 79.4. So he just kind of had a skid at the end, but that type of skid is still, 79.4. That would still rank him where James Austin Johnson is at 5th place, the 79.4. And I want to talk about Bowen a little bit because I love Bowen so much. And I think he's a case in the fandom of SNL that we're not appreciating what he's done to this point because we're so accustomed to it. Whereas somebody maybe like an A.D. Bryant, who I also love, when they leave, you don't know how much you're going to miss them until it happens. So I think for Bowen to be at this point in his career where he has that is already huge. Just being openly gay, Asian cast member, former writer, coming in and just killing it, like bringing queer comedy, bringing aspects of his own interests to the forefront of pop culture, with his podcast and on the show, has really changed the DNA of SNL. And as somebody who is not in those worlds, I just appreciate that I can laugh with Bowen at those aspects because I wouldn't have known about them otherwise. So Bowen Yang's charisma, his performances, his commitment to the bits, I just appreciate. And so this is it for him, with the Bowen and ScarJo pre-tape being in the finale, could be a nod to maybe him exiting, then I just appreciate you, Bowen. So I love what you've done, and from what coming in as a writer till now, being number 2 in the power rankings and just crushing it this year. So Bill, I want you to follow that speech.
I'll try. That's it's really telling and really great to see that is not the lead part of talking about Bowen. The fact that he's openly gay or that he's Asian American, because he's just become the superstar. That's not something you could have said even 10 years ago. I know when he came into the show, there was concern about, is he going to get typecast? You know, is he just going to be put in these roles that are just Asian or just, and he's blown that to bits. He does everything on the show. And it's really great that we've gotten to this point where that's not the first thing that's mentioned in someone that's an SNL cast member. So yeah, if this is the end, he's had a great run.
And what is your prediction, Bill? Will Bowen go out basically on top in the power rankings, or is he gonna continue to grow in 51?
I don't think he's leaving. I think a lot of people have read into the good nights. The fact that he was crying. I think that's just kind of an end of school year thing a lot of the time. So I think he'll be back.
I think he'll be back too. John?
I don't know. I think that he has a tough decision to make over the summer. It's interesting because I was just thinking, like, is he the first SNL cast member since the third golden era to be as good on the show as they are big outside of the show? So, like, think about where those two things intersect with each other. Like, when we're talking about popularity outside of the show, like, Pete was really popular outside of SNL, but didn't necessarily have that like dominating force on the show. Kate, 80, and Cecily, I think you could argue were better on SNL than they were popular outside of the show. Like, I think you got to go back to like Kristen, Bill, Samber, like those guys to think about like equal popularity to dominance on the show. And like that to me like creates like a very unique situation for somebody where they have to make a very tough decision every season. Do I continue to crush Saturday Night Live, or do I continue to focus on my exploding career outside of the show?
You'll have to define how popular you think he is outside SNL, because I'm not sure that he's a household name like a Kenan is.
I think he's hit like a whole other level. I mean, beyond just the fact that you're talking about representing other people that are normally represented on the show, like being in Wicked, his podcast is like one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Like, I think that there's just like a level of like Bowen Yang is becoming such a personality in the celebrity space that it's just like, it's a really interesting time. Like, I think I honestly can't think of anyone else in the last 15 years that's been able to pull off what he has.
I think he should do at least one more season. That's my opinion. I think he's at the point. I'm looking at his power ranking from 48, and he was at a 96, and he's at a 85.7 in the most ensemble year, this huge SNL 50 year. And I think there's more room. So I want Bowen in my cast. That's my prediction. So Bill says he's back. John, I guess you're undecided.
I don't mean to not make a call here, but like I'm a little on the fence because I think this is one of those situations where the show will take Bowen back in a heartbeat, but Bowen has to make a tough decision that he's going to have to make in between every season that he has from now on, which is just like, where does he want his focus to be? Because he has all the opportunities in the world right now, both on the show and off.
They'll just pre-tape his sketches in the summer like they did with Eddie.
But honestly, right? Like he's like, I'm not saying that he's Eddie Murphy, but I'm just saying that like he's
No,
in
I
that
get what
same
you're saying.
thing. Yeah.
I think maybe Will Ferrell's the last one who was exploded. You say the third golden era. I don't know who was outside of the show that popular. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. You might be right, honestly, because like those guys were so popular for me personally, like growing up in that age, but it's possible that like I was just in the bubble of like the perfect market for them. So I can't see past my own goggles of the third golden era. But like you're probably right. Like on just a mainstream level, it's been forever since we had someone who is so mainstream, but now also crushing it on the show. Like he could have sacrificed his involvement in sketches on Saturday Night Live because of all the things that he's been doing off of the show, but he hasn't, and that is more impressive to me than anything else we talked about tonight.
I think the best case scenario is he has another killer season and promotes the second half of Wicked, which will come out next year, and then leave on that. Because there was a thing we discovered live on air last week, John, with Andrew Dick on the podcast, of this magic number 7, people talking about this contract of 7 years. And I read out that list, and I want to get Bill's thoughts before we move on. These are the cast members who stayed 7 seasons. And Bowen could join that list next year. Vanessa Bayer, Will Ferrell, Tracy Morgan, Andy Samberg, Rachel Dratch, Kristen Wiig, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Molly Shannon. So that is a hell of a list. And, some of those were partial seasons, but they appeared in the cast in 7 seasons, no more, no less. I think for Bowen, that could be a perfect final season would be 7, Bill.
100% agree. Yeah, I had most of those names in my head as you were starting to read them. So, yeah, Kristen and Will, probably the most famous, leaving after their 7-year contract. Yeah, I think Bowen, that would be a great way to go out. Absolutely. One more year, Bowen.
Would love to see it. Love you, Bowen. All right, number 1, John. We've reached the end, and yeah, it's not Jadge, not Dismukes, not Sarah, not Bowen, but the man of the week for the last 2 weeks. It's Colin Jost, Bill. Number 1 stat king. I talked about it last week with the final reveal, top of the show. I just was stunned. His numbers were just too huge. Look at the bottom of this card, by the way, because you can see the power ranking by episode and see that he was number 1 for 2 weeks in a row with Goggins and ScarJo. So, of course, screen time by segment, it's going to be 97.5% on update. 26 segments, though, so 20 on update. We also saw him elsewhere. The Here I Go pre-tape, a couple cold opens, one with Cecily most recently, one after Trump won the election, and they all were, doing that in the Bill Burr episode. And having Colin Jost be number 1, it just, John, it feels like this is it, right? Like, I mean, if the numbers can prove anything, it's that a weekend update anchor who's been there this long, who's never finished number 1, does it this time.
I felt like I was watching the Kentucky Derby with Colin Jost, like just
Yes.
like out of nowhere, just like comes in at the end, does this goodbye or non-goodbye tour all of a sudden in the last stretch and takes over for Bowen, who really should be at the top of the power rankings if we're being fair. But it seemed like they were saying goodbye to Colin and they were giving him all the latitude to do whatever he wants at the end of the show. And if he doesn't leave, it definitely is like a little of like, what the hell was that? But regardless, again, like we said for Che, like one of the all-time great update anchors here, had another fantastic season. I think they were really proud of having Jost and Che doing update at the 50th, like anchoring that, moment, having them get their shine in front of, the history of the show. And I think that, this would be an amazing way to say goodbye to a legend. But if he comes back, it'll be interesting, right? Because like it's not going to be the 50th. Like the hype will die down a little bit. I assume Scarlett Johansson's not going to host next year. So like, does he just like have this like one really weird anomaly season and falls back into the pack? Like, it's really hard to have the conversation of what Colin Jost season 51 looks like when we all just have the expectation that the conversation would be right now about like what his legacy meant.
And Bill, I feel like it's important to explain this. 2 hours, 14 minutes, 9 seconds. He crushed the cast in screen time. So we make the jokes about why do Che and Jost not have the same screen time. Well, why doesn't anyone have the screen time as Colin Jost? Because it's just massive. You know, there's only 3 cast members, including him, that had over 2 hours, and he beat them by a quarter of an hour at 2:15 almost. So I think that if he comes back, I'll just say it, it's a huge mistake. This goes to my Longfellow take. It's just the stars have lined up where Colin Jost and Michael Che have already 2 seasons ago, or no, longer than that, honestly, John, have broken the record for the most updates. Like, they passed Seth Meyers October of 21, I think. It's 2025. So they've already done that. And then Colin Jost got to, you know, bid adieu to Cecily when her last episode with Austin Butler, and saw everyone who came in his cast other than Kenan start and finish, or they're still there. So for him to come back, especially from a stat angle, I have to go back to, just seems like crazy to me. Like, why would this happen? He didn't lead the power rankings for a single week. Gets to number 2 after Goggins, the huge week, and then gets to number 1 after the finale. Bill, what do you make of all this?
I'm stymied. I think I say this to you all the time, Mike, and no pressure to get through the other 42 seasons that you haven't gotten to yet. It will be fascinating to see how many weekend update anchors lead like this. I would think, my guess would be that the last time this happened would be Amy Poehler in 33, right? Because she had the most segments. She was on Weekend Update. So I don't, because Seth wasn't doing a lot of sketches when he took over Update. So I don't know. It'll be really, really fascinating to see how many times in the history of the show, but it hasn't happened in the entire time that you've been doing this. So that just speaks volumes for someone who does get as much screen time as they do, hosting Update, having the most correspondence on their side of the desk. And I don't want to see them leave. I'm sorry, I don't. But if they do, if you're going to go out, you got to go out on top. So really, really interesting stuff here.
And John, 26 appearances for Colin Jost. Did he ever beat that in his earlier years? I can't think
I think when he played Pete Buttigieg in season 45, he may have been in 27 segments.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's not so rare. But just like the fact that he came in and crushed here, like, it does really give me the vibe of, you know, one of my favorite things in sports is when an athlete retires after they win a championship. Like, it is a rare thing to see,
Yes.
but like, I think of like Peyton Manning, Michael Strahan, even like in tennis, sometimes a big tennis fan, like Pete Sampras, like retired right after he won the US Open for the last time. Like, that type of thing, like going out on top is huge. I know that like for SNL cast members, they're not like following the data in the way that we are. So I don't think that Colin Jost is like, I won a championship, like after walking away from the finale. But like, he has to know how great of a season he had among all of the other great moments that he had leading up to the finale, and then his wife hosting the last episode of the biggest season in the history of the show. So beyond just the pure data of it all, it also has the feeling of like a little bit of a special moment. And I just truly do wish we were able to have that moment together as an SNL family. If he does decide to leave over the summer, I will always say that. I will always say, oh, I wish we could have done it. Of course, everyone has the right to retire from the show in their own way. It's just, as a big fan of the show, as someone who covers and supports the show, this is something that I just wish that we could do. I wish we could celebrate his goodbye in the way that we did with Kristen or Kate or any of the greats who have done that before.
And we talked about it on the round table and by the numbers, but no better spot, right, than Weekend Update when they're every week as themselves. They get to talk to us at home on TV and talk to the live studio audience and say whatever they want to say. Like, they can go off script. They often do, and play off each other. And the team of Jost and Che, talk about the story of SNL. And can you mention them or can you not mention them? You cannot with Jost and Che for sure. So if you're talking about Chevy Chase from the beginning, Jost and Che are such a huge part of the story and have been the anchors from, season 40, SNL 40 special to this 50th. And even having Bill Murray do the ranking and having Michael Che be the number one black anchor. And that's the end of the list. And then having Colin Jost, is he going to be number one? No, it's Brian Doyle Murray, at the number one. Everything is just being teed up for them to not say goodbye. So maybe they just had their fill, and that's totally their choice. And I support that choice. But if they don't come back, fine. But if they do come back, it's a little weird, John.
It's very weird. I don't know what else to say about it because we've been talking about it for a couple weeks now on so many shows. But like, it's the biggest question mark for me coming into next year. There's so many people whose careers depend on whether they're coming back or not, beyond just like their decisions to retire. It's fascinating. Bill, I have an interesting stat for you. There's only 3 people in the history of the show who have a worse SPE than Colin Jost. Do you know who they
are? George Coe. Oh, John.
I can't do bits 3 hours and 45 minutes into the show.
Absolutely, yes. To keep the sports metaphor going for a minute here, and they'll never ever do this, but wouldn't it be interesting if Jost and Che show up at the desk, episode 1, season 51, and just like in a ball game, Lorne comes out, hits his arm and calls to the bullpen, and they bring out Longfellow and Sarah or something like that to give them one chance to get a standing ovation. If it is the end, it's kind of a letdown that we didn't get to really properly say goodbye to them. As I've said before, like that's a more modern thing that we say goodbye to these people, but it's kind of expected for somebody like to these guys' caliber.
I think the closest comp may be when Jimmy Fallon came back on the Cameron Diaz episode and saw that Tina and Amy were doing Update, and he came back with like there's Tina and Amy's son, little Lorne, and they continued that whole like bit there. Like, I think that there definitely is a possibility that the premiere of season 51 has some sort of sketch that involves them leaving the show. It's not out of the realm of possibility, I should say. So it'll be interesting to watch for.
I'll wrap up Colin Jost card by just kind of doing my job here, stat comp of an Update anchor who is now on the power ranking, is that in season 47, Colin Jost had the same role, right, Bill? So did Che. But he was a 68. So 68 in that season, just to pick one random one. He was, 71 other year, 76 a different year. So to have him be at an 87.3, they've made Update longer. They did a joke swap both times. They've just like given Colin more to do outside Update. Like, just want to tell listeners that the numbers don't lie. Something is going on here, and we can say goodnight. But the stats of having Jost be number one cannot be ignored. So
yeah,
that'll
and
do
I'll also
it
say like watch. Yeah, great stuff. I'll also say watch out like the potential of him becoming the future Jeopardy host. I think that's something that like if there's a path for him in the future off the show, I think that's something to consider if that does ever open up. But Mike, what a night.
What a night. I feel like I'm older now, but it was a lot of fun.
Yes. So 347, we're not done yet, but we're probably in the top 5 SNL Saturday Night Network SNL stats.
Great chat, by the way.
Oh, great chat. Yeah. People hanging out with us for almost 4 hours. This was awesome here tonight, Mike.
Yeah. Love you guys. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'll give it to you, John, first. I mean, we have a whole summer ahead of us. So before we actually say goodnight, let's tee up the 50 to 51 summer on the SNN.
Sure. So we're not done, believe it or not, with our season 50 coverage. If you had fun tonight, we're also going to have fun on Monday night, where I will be here with our amazing patrons and Sammy K to do our final feedback show of the season. So this is so much fun. If you're a patron of the show, you still have time to sign up. I'm going to close that forum Friday afternoon and I'll get in touch either late Friday afternoon or Saturday morning to all of the patrons to email them the time slots for Monday night. So cannot wait to have all of you on to talk about this. If you would like to join us on Patreon, patreon.com/the SNL network, where you can join and sign up for that show. We will also have the form out in a few days to sign up for a show over the summer where you can join Bill Kenney and I on our countdown that begins June 9th. And that is the countdown of the 50 greatest episodes of all time. So the forum for that will be on Patreon in just a couple of days. The poll for that will be out on Friday on our social media. So we'll have that available for people to vote in their favorite episodes. We will also have a special form for our patrons and our podcasters to vote, where their votes will count just for like a little bit more, since we're not just like randos on the internet voting in this one. So we will count your votes a slight more as we put them in and count them down all summer long with Bill Kenney. But it'll be an absolute blast. There's a lot of really fun things happening. It'll be every single Monday night as we count down the 50 greatest episodes of all time. And if you want to get more from the SNN, we have more for you, including SNL Stories tomorrow night with Tim Kazurinsky. So Andrew Dick and James Stevens join me for that conversation. That'll be out. We just had Fred Armisen out last Thursday. There'll be more SNL Stories that we're recording that are coming over the summer. And everything you need to know about Saturday Night Live will be coming out in just a couple of weeks. So stay tuned. I will announce the premiere date for season 21 next week. So you will have all of that information. Looking forward to sharing that one with you. It is a great season.
Can't wait for all that content. The machine never stops.
Never stops. Gotta take that breath.
Take that breath. Okay, Bill, over to you. I mean, this guy, talk about a Dismukes trajectory. Look at Bill Kenney. This should be studied. We picked this guy out of nowhere. Look at the man now. Well, just look what he's up to. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Mike. I'm so excited for the summer series with John. It's going to be so much fun talking about Steven Seagal, Miskell Spillman. It's really going to be something to talk about. And yeah, SNL Hall of Fame is wrapping up. Voting ends this Saturday at midnight. So make sure you go. Put your ballot in for the final season of the SNL Hall of Fame, and one last episode over there to reveal the class of season 7 next Tuesday. So thanks for having me. This, as I said, what a fun time to come on with you two gents and do this every year.
Can I also just say, you guys both took pee breaks and I didn't. So I think I won tonight.
There's still time, John. We can run the clock out.
Who says I was peeing, John?
Oh God. Okay. All right.
No, not that.
Well,
I was watching old episodes of I Love Lucy. I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
I think this was the best final by the numbers ever. And if you agree, then, let us know in the chat. What a great season. 5 years on SNN doing stats. I love it more every year. It gets harder every year, but it gets more fun every year. So if you love the show or you like the show or you checked out the show, please leave a review. Follow us at the SNL Network on our socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your pods. Mention by the numbers in a review. Let me know what you want to see next year. We have a whole season ahead of us and many more after that. I hope this show outlives us all because I love it so much. So I want to thank John Schneider, Bill Kenney, LateNighter.com, of course, for presenting for us. John, you want to interrupt? Please do.
Yes, I actually want to interrupt because
okay.
I also would be completely not doing my duty by not thanking you.
Okay.
You have done such an incredible job with stats this season. Every season you do a great job. But the listeners, they don't get to see how hard you work on this stuff. You staying up like really late doing this. Like, I know you love getting to do the show, but I want to thank you on air for like all of the work you provide, like such a great service to the SNL community. So really thank you, Mike. I also want to thank Matt and Ellis behind the scenes for putting together those charts you saw up here tonight. And I think also Eric helps you with a lot of data as well. So I want to thank Eric too for all this help on the By the Numbers show this year. So like, I didn't mean to interrupt you and interrupt your flow, but I just really want to thank the team that works really hard on data. Thank you, Mike Murray.
Appreciate it, John. I was about to thank those guys too, but I'll thank them again. Thanks, Eric. Thank you, Matt, Ellis, everybody who helps me out behind the scenes. It is a team effort, and we love giving you data that you can't find anywhere else in the world. Is, treating SNL like a sport. It's been a hypothesis, scientific method to treat a comedy sketch show like a sport. And here we are doing a show about it. So the fact that we're able to do this, and there's so many people in the chat all night for a 4-hour show about SNL stats, I cannot believe it, Bill. But here we are. So thank you to John Schneider, Nicole Rovine, Bill Kenney, Kirsten Riola, Jack, Victoria, Haskell, Thomas, Sammy, Law Murray, Sam Smith, Andrew Dick, Dennis Perkins, Andrew Haynes, TJ Randolph, Zoe Walker, Nicola, Brad, everybody who's been on this year, the whole chat, all the patrons. Good night, everybody. I'll see you in 51.